Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
And here it is, the Hillary Clinton Nutcracker. As you can see on the box, it says it has stainless steel thighs and cracks the toughest nuts. Is America ready for this nutcracker, it asks, and you can go to HillaryNutcracker.com to find out more. But it's very interesting. Pulled it out, you can see it's got the stainless steel thighs right there, but there's some excellent quotes on the back, which I'll go ahead and read now. The directions, as President Bush likes to say, you don't have to be a rocket surgeon to use it. You just place the nut between the legs and squeeze, much like Hillary herself has been known to do. Heard on the street, I can feel Bill's pain, says Barack Obama. I guess the battle against the vast right-wing nut conspiracy is still on. That's from Dick Cheney. Why does Hillary get to have all the fun, says Nancy Pelosi. Hillary Nutcracker, that's redundant, from John McCain. I'd be getting nervous if I was one of those nut jobs, Kim Jong-il. I can feel the squeeze from 50 feet away, says Rudy Giuliani, and no comment from Bill Clinton. So there you go, the Hillary Nutcracker. Very interesting piece of Americana, but you know what's different about this one than most others you'll find on the web? This one actually talks, and it sounds a lot like Hillary. Just listen.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
So, Hillary, what do you like to do to terrorists?
Let us bomb these places.
Hillary, what do you think about the disclosures that the Pentagon has been giving tons and tons of heavy armor and weaponry to police departments around the country?
Sometimes military action is necessary.
What are your thoughts on Edward Snowden?
Edward Snowden broke our laws.
But what about all this continued NSA surveillance? Is there anything we could do about that?
I think it would be shocking to most people if the United States stopped gathering information. That's just not the way the real world works.
Well, Hillary, what does your husband Bill think about NSA surveillance?
Wait, you want me to tell you what my husband thinks? So you ask my opinion, I will tell you my opinion. I'm not going to be channeling my husband.
Do you have any jokes?
I will try to preserve my reputation as being, somewhat humorless and jokeless by not trying to tell one.
Now, if you're going to be running for president, you're going to have to campaign in the South. What are you going to be saying to all those people down there below the Mason-Dixon line?
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from.
All right, now I'm going to get serious. How do you feel about those 4 Americans that were killed in Benghazi?
What difference at this point does it make?
I thought you would say that. So why do we give those terrorists the heat-seeking missiles?
It's a constant balancing. What do we do? How far do we go?
But isn't arming terrorists bad?
The people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago.
Don't you think that's a bit hypocritical?
This is an inherent contradiction.
Now, Hillary, what about all the civilian deaths with drones? Is there anything we can do about that?
The numbers about potential civilian casualties, I take with a somewhat big grain of salt.
What do you think about Democrats who've been distancing themselves from Jonathan Gruber's remarks when they were praising him in the past?
What difference at this point does it make?
And what was that you said when you heard Colonel Gaddafi had been killed?
We came, we saw, he died.
Do you have anything else to say to the American people before you run for president?
But we came out of the White House not only dead broke, but in debt.
Well, as you can see, the Hillary Nutcracker is certainly full of more than just nuts. She's full of a lot of BS. But those stainless steel thighs are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Yeah, we're definitely going to put this one back in the vault where it belongs. So we hope Hillary doesn't run for president again. But I hope you enjoyed this little presentation of just looking back at some of the amazing things Hillary Clinton has had to say about certain events in the world. This is Rob Dew with InfoWars Nightly News. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please consider becoming a member of PrisonPlanet.tv. You can now share your username and password with up to 20 people. Instead of 11, we've now upgraded it to 20. So be sure you get your membership today.
I don't normally do the classic talk show routine, but sometimes I do. A few times a year, maybe. A handful of times. because I really myself want to focus in on the new year that's coming up and all the important developments that happened in 2014. And I want to hear your predictions for 2015. I don't want to do them the week of Christmas or on the eve of New Year's Eve. I want to start thinking about it now. What do you think the most important real developments are versus hype that's out there? I'd like to hear what you think the big diversionary story of 2014 has been so far, and what you think the big stories of the end of 2014, 2015 are going to be. When I talk about big stories, things that are going to affect us. Possible expansion of NATO confrontation with Russia. ISIS, Al-Qaeda renamed to confuse the public, striking into new countries, hitting the West. Race conflict in the United States being turned on high by the Democratic Party and others. Ferguson verdicts that could spark other chain reactions. GMO crops getting out of control. More and more studies coming out that they're obviously hurting humans. What's the next big shoe to drop? Will the globalists launch false flags somewhere in the West, like the United States or Europe, and allow ISIS to attack us, or attack us and say that ISIS did it as a pretext? This morning, I saw 2 Homeland Security federal vehicles. One of them pulling into a Wendy's I was driving past. It was a DHS explosives response vehicle. It was a Dodge truck with a cab on the back pulling into Wendy's. And then I saw, before that, a federal police DHS vehicle. We're going under federalization, and it's for imaginary things like just incredibly rare bombs, bombing attacks. The only folks that have really launched real bombing attacks in this country are the mentors of the current president. Oklahoma City was 100% proven stage false flag to blame the proto-Tea Party, the libertarian conservative movement that was trying to get us out of the UN and things. And Oklahoma had just passed a resolution 6 months before to do that, was going for open carry and leading the country in true Americana. So they got hit by Clinton and his people. I'm not going to recap that. I've made a film, been in other films, had the police officers on that saw the bombs. We have the hotel receipts of the FBI team that was there and said they weren't, that were then seen by witnesses in the building planting the bombs. We know they were on other false flags like Fast and Furious and got caught with their pants down as well. So these are the real issues that a politicized FBI has been caught doing. I'm not even saying it's the whole FBI, because it changes politically depending on who's control of it. But it's certain cells in the FBI and the CIA and other agencies working with other cells in the Justice Department right out of the White House. Kind of like we learned there were different cells operating out of the CIA, FBI with the White House, with the whole Iran-Contra situation, the whole thing with Nixon and the plumbers and Watergate. I mean, we know how this works. So what's the next big shoe to drop? Obviously, my reporters have been up there for 4 days in Ferguson, outside Missouri, freezing their butts off. They're going to have a lot of news coming up today about DHS massing and a lot more. That'll be at the bottom of the 3rd hour. We also have, from the Hagmann Report, Doug Hagmann joining us to get into a host of important issues in the 2nd hour. But I want to open the phones up throughout this Wednesday edition as we cover a lot of important economic news, you name it, and to take your phone calls. Here is this story by Paul Joseph Watson that just went up on Infowars.com. And it ties into a story from November 6th, going back about 2 weeks ago. Obama caught ordering press to cover up Ebola. Pharmacologist reveals, who writes for Forbes, how press has bowed to government demand to keep Americans in the dark. He was at the official Duke University Ebola response with the head of the CDC. And David Kroll revealed that they all got together in a meeting and admitted with the AP and others that there was an order from the government to cover up people being disappeared who appeared to have Ebola. Now, we've had a medical doctor on, Lorenzi out of Missouri, who named the hospitals and the places that people were bleeding out. They believed they had Ebola, and they were disappeared and taken out of the records. that was not ever investigated by the mainstream media. It went on. We have other medical doctor sources. Gucciardi 2 weeks ago went to Dallas to investigate. The doctors were all totally scared and believe they're going to get in trouble when this all comes out 6 months, a year down the road, and the government will hang them out to dry for going along with the cover-ups. We're talking to heads of hospitals who feel liable for the cover-up. It's going on. And I was thinking about it this morning when I got up early and saw Paul Watson's article on Infowars.com at like 6:30 this morning. This new article. And I just thought how surreal it is that because the mainstream media is not covering it, a lot of my reporters aren't even covering it. And I mean, it just shows the effect. I've not been covering it. I mean, last week I told Gucciardi, I said, write an article about that. And he goes, yeah, but the doctors are scared. And I said, don't say the names of the hospitals, just do it. And he goes, yeah, but it's not in the news. I know. That's the whole point. That's why he went to Dallas. So I'm going to get Anthony, I think, in here tomorrow. I want to schedule him in here for at least 30 minutes tomorrow. Let's get that set up right now. He'll get his notes together, write an article today that goes out tomorrow morning, and we'll just categorize all this because here's Paul Watson's new article. Now, remember, you had multiple people fly in from New York bleeding out of West Africa, and they're disappeared. You have somebody dying on a plane, vomiting blood, and before they even check him, they announce he doesn't have Ebola. You got people dying in Houston. You got weird deaths in Dallas. You've got all this weird stuff going on. And the feds show up, and then, no, that's not what happened here. Well, here's Paul Watson's latest article. NYC woman on Ebola watch list dies bleeding from mouth. Authorities say heart attack. Did you hear that? New York City woman on Ebola watch list dies bleeding from mouth. Authorities say heart attack. Our suspected Ebola case is being covered up. A woman who returned from Guyana 18 days ago and was on an Ebola monitoring list dropped dead in a Brooklyn hair salon yesterday after eyewitnesses said she began bleeding from the mouth and nose, but authorities later asserted the case of death was an apparent heart attack. Maybe it is. But it just keeps happening and happening and happening to people on the list. The fire department in New York activated the special operations and hazmat units after the woman who had traveled to Guyana 3 weeks ago, according to the sources of the scene, died at Amy Professional African Hair Braiding in the Brownsville area of Brooklyn, reports the Daily Mail. Despite eyewitnesses reporting that there was blood coming from the woman's face, nose, and mouth when authorities claimed she had not displayed any Ebola symptoms. See, it's also the signs of lying. Why not just say the heart attack made her bleed out of the nose and mouth? No, they just say no blood, but the witnesses say there's blood everywhere. And had in fact died of a heart attack. The woman, who was in her 40s, is being tested for Ebola, the results of which will be announced later today. Now, let's just stop right there. And the video, the hazmat crews, and all the rest of it, and what happened at the hair salon and the eyewitnesses is on Infowars.com. But just don't believe Infowars.com. Here's the Forbes article. Liberian traveler at Duke Hospital, negative for Ebola. And you read it, and buried in the article, they go, oh, yeah, and we were told to cover up what appears to be Ebola in the country. That's the issue, is the order of the cover-up, and why would the media go along with that? That is very newsworthy. Now, I hope Ebola isn't spreading. I live here. I'm not saying it's going to be some huge epidemic or pandemic. All I know is they're letting people in as the numbers increase in Africa. And notice how the Ebola story, once this new czar got in control, is known for media cover-ups. You don't even hear about the escalation of deaths in Africa. You don't hear about people flying in now. It's just off the radar. 1/100th of the Ebola news there was overnight, starting 3-4 weeks ago, when people got upset and were making it political and saying, control our borders, control the flights coming in. All these other countries banned it. Governor said stuff. And the order went out, hey, there's no Ebola. We're Ebola-free. A surgeon just died over the weekend who had Ebola. But that doesn't matter in the U.S. Doesn't matter. There's no Ebola, and you can keep your doctor if you like your doctor, and it's going to cut your health care in half to the cost of a phone bill, and raising the debt limit doesn't raise the debt limit, and you didn't build your business, and Obama doesn't know Gruber, even though he knows Gruber and says he's the main architect. And there are no death panels, even though there are death panels. And we don't want your guns, even though we want to ban your guns. I mean, this is a known group of liars, folks, that killed thousands of Mexicans and hundreds of Americans, including at least 6 police officers, if you count the Border Patrol, in shipping guns to Mexico, and got caught, and giving heat-seeking missiles to al-Qaeda and everything else in Benghazi. You can't trust anything comes out of their mouths. That's all I'm getting at here. And everybody seems to know that. It's almost passé that I'm even on air now. It was so radical years ago to talk like this. Now it's just like, okay, yeah, there's cancer viruses in the vaccines. Okay, GMO kills lab rats and the honeybees. Okay, well, I want to hear from you what you think the biggest and the next big shoe to drop is, the next big balloon. What are you most concerned about? Because by having a debate about it, we can get ready for it, draw attention to it, maybe stop it. Toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. We also have the special report, Hillary Clinton Talking Nutcracker Tells All. It's a real jewel by news director Rob Dew. I suggest everyone go to Infowars.com and watch it right now. We're going to post it on Facebook and Real Alex Jones on Twitter. By the way, it's official. Obama is to announce his, quote, immigration reform, unilateral, outside of Congress's control, outside of the courts, in Las Vegas on Friday. Drudge Report calls it the Vegas jackpot. And that report is out of CNBC News. They're saying that the health order will omit health benefits. Well, they already give them health benefits, so I think that's PR propaganda out of the New York Times, if you ask me. We'll give you details of that coming up. I do want to, again, take a lot of your phone calls here today, and we'll start doing that here in a moment. Then we'll look at the latest in Ferguson. We've got some very interesting news and some good news. AT&T quietly backs away from its use of advanced tracking cookies due to public backlash and the fact that there's now a major market in not surveilling people. Also, military deploys chemical, biological, nuclear, and high-yield explosive response vehicles to St. Louis, Missouri. Very interesting. Terrorism-related deaths up 60% last year, worldwide study says. Yeah, because the West has turned loose jihadi globalist armies. So we'll be breaking those reports down. Also, we'll get into 3 of the 10 largest economies in the world have already fallen into recession. Is the U.S. next? We never left the recession in most sectors of the economy, in my view, since 2008. We'll also look at a Zero Hedge article about one reader's shocked response upon learning his health insurance costs had doubled. There's another great report on Infowars.com. This is why Rand Paul is Hillary Clinton's worst nightmare, and more. That is all coming up today. The toll-free number is 800-259-9231. We're going to talk to Mr. Hagmann coming up in the second hour with all of his intel sources, breaking down what he thinks Obama may try to pull to get his executive order agenda through. Don't think they're not going to go for broke. They know America's waking up. They're going to pull something. Everybody can see it. Everybody can feel it. We know the MO, the history of these people. So do you have your eyes peeled? What's your gut tell you is coming next? That's what we're talking about right now, the next big event. Or what do you think the big events of 2015 will be, or in the last month coming up of 2014? Let's talk to Slim in Canada. Slim, what's your view?
My view is I think they're going to come out of left field with this one. They came at us with 9/11, and we didn't expect that. So I think they're going to give us something unexpected. It's nothing to do with ISIS, nothing to do with Ebola, nothing to do with all the stuff that they're trying to scare us. What they're doing is they're basically priming us to put us in a state of fear, which for me personally isn't working. But they want to do something that's completely out of the box, I'm thinking. And it's going to be something like, I think it's going to be health-related. I mean, you could see that they're upping the bioengineering or whatever, geoengineering. These days, you see a lot more planes in the sky.
Well, that's what Obama said. He said this is a trial run for something airborne much worse. And it is. This whole Ebola thing is a trial run. Can they order the media to lie and cover stuff up? And will they go along with the order to stand down? And clearly, yes, the media is now ready to jeopardize themselves and the entire future of this nation and the world by being subservient, supine, horribly demonic lapdogs nesting on the chest of this corrupt system.
Well, they don't call it paid programming for nothing. We're the ones who are trying to be programmed. That's the key. I mean, they're trying to program us. We're not watching program. We're being programmed. So, I mean, the media is going to try and spin it to the sheep as much as they can and try and put their spin on it and put us, like I said, put us at a left field, just like they did with all the other false flags. I mean, we just found out that here in Canada, that the one that we had here was completely a false flag. I mean, the guy turns out wasn't even, I mean, there's some cases that are showing that the guy wasn't even a Canadian citizen, let alone a guy in the military.
Well, I'll tell you how it's false flag. Major Hassan that shot and killed 13 people, wounded huge numbers of others. For 2 years, the CIA was watching him talking to the supposed head of al-Qaeda, Awlaki, and they declared national security on those emails, never told the Army, knew he was going to do it and let him do it. Just like they've helped fund al-Qaeda to attack Assad, they turn around, run into Iraq, grab the oil fields, and then go, oh, my goodness, what are we going to do? They're false flagging us in front of us. You know, false flags don't mean the government carries the attack out every time. Sometimes they just fund the nutbags and then open the door for them to do it. Great point. So you're looking for biological terrorism or staged al-Qaeda terrorism in 2015, so we learn to worship our captors and have mass Stockholm Syndrome. More calls coming up. We're going to go right back to your phone calls and back into the news on this live Wednesday worldwide transmission. I'm your host, Alex Jones. Please remember how vitally important it is to spread the word about this broadcast. The fact that we're on close to 180 affiliates, a lot of them big stations, a lot of them great mom and pops across the country, is such a testament to the fact that America is waking up. And the fact that this broadcast 15 years ago was seen as out of this world, bizarre, crazy, wild. And now you see the points we bring up being echoed across the media sphere shows that we're not as naive as we once were. I'm only going off the facts, off the history, off the documentation. So when you're listening to us on an AM or FM affiliate, please tell your friends and family. Please tell people at red lights, hey, tune in to such and such station right now. They're covering some important news. That's how people used to get their news, was word of mouth. And people still get it that way. That's how we've come from nowhere and grown exponentially, is that as wild as this information sounds, 20 years ago when we started, so much of it's come true that people now understand that we're not perfect, but that we, for all intents and purposes, have got some of the most accurate, piercing, in-depth research and information out there. And so we want to share that with people. We don't want to be defeated by the globalist. We don't want to be slaves. And I was thinking about something right before the broadcast started, and the last caller raised this point. If a robber is breaking in my house and a neighbor calls and says, hey, Alex, I see some guy going in your basement. Most people don't have basements in Texas. I've got a basement. House I've got out in the country has a basement. And if a neighbor called and said, hey, I see a guy breaking in your basement, I wouldn't say, how dare you fearmonger to me. I'd say, thanks, David, or thanks, Ron, or thanks, Carol, or whatever their name was. This is hypothetical. And I would call the police first. And then I would get a firearm. And I would get to a position away in concealment from the entrance to the basement that's outside. And I'd say, come out with your hands up and get on the ground. Because if somebody's going to break in your house when you're there, most of the time they're armed and will carry out violence. If somebody's robbing your house when you're not there, if I pulled up and caught somebody breaking into my house, I'd probably just sit back, call 911, because I don't want to kill somebody over property. It's too much trouble. But if you come to my house when I'm there and break in, you are dangerous, and I'm going to go after you. But that's a side issue. The reason I raised that that analogy is it's not fear-mongering to tell someone what's already going on. One time I was walking out by Big Bend between one lodge and the other lodges. They're at the Chisos Lodge. And my friend said, hey, let's just walk around. You don't want to walk out through that grass. This happened this year in March. And I said, come on, let's just go back to the restaurant now. I'm tired. That's just grass. I've walked over it before. All right, you're going to break your leg. Walk out about 50 yards. Someone had removed a telephone pole or something in the dark on the gravel, 3-foot hole, leg goes all the way in, rupture half my Achilles. I'm going through rehabilitation right now. Should have surgery probably, but we're going to see. But the reason I tell that story is they weren't being a fearmonger. I always use that analogy. Don't walk around in fields without a flashlight. I've used that for 20 years on air, and then I did it. And that's a good testament there as well. Just because I say something doesn't mean I'm following it. I'm trying to. I try to walk the walk if I talk the talk. But you know, sometimes we just don't think. We're tired. Take a shortcut. When I get up here on air and I tell you that most neurological disorders have been directly linked to vaccines, bioaccumulation of pesticides, and fluoride in the water, there are Harvard and Cambridge. When I say hundreds, that's me lying, because there's really thousands. But people think I exaggerate. Most of the time, I know there's thousands of studies. Probably 10,000. I mean, there are thousands I've seen on fluoride alone from Japan and China and Russia and Germany. There are more than 100 from the University of Texas going back to the 1930s. They had studies at UT in the 30s proving everything we know today already. So see, when I say, oh, there's hundreds of studies, no, there's tens of thousands. So many, I have no idea how many. It's in the tens of thousands. So from now on, I'm going to stop holding back. I'm really trying to train myself to tell you what I really know. Because I'm not exaggerating most of the time. I am holding back, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not because I don't think we can't beat them. It's not because I'm trying to scare you. Because being in a fear place is not effective. I want you to get upset and angry. I have the best crew I've ever had in 17 years of having a crew. First 3 years, it was just me. And I guess Buckley helping my cousin who's come back to work with us after being gone for 12 years. So I guess he was there at the start. My dad helped a little bit as well. And my sister. But I've never had a crew this good. But still, there's an instinct when something's gone on around the office or bad news to not tell me about it and try to fix it. And I told them, don't do that. I want to know what's going on. I want to hear about it so that I can be prepared for it. If somebody was coming to rob your house in an armed robbery, would you rather know, even though it's scary? Would you call the person that warned you a fearmonger? When they hang up flyers around a neighborhood saying this man has been seen breaking into 5 houses this week and tried to kidnap a woman, be on the lookout, is that fearmongering? No. It's local. It's been reported by citizens. It's being watchful and vigilant. When they say give up your rights, Al-Qaeda will kill you, and then our own government's protecting Al-Qaeda, that is fearmongering. So you have to judge each thing at each point. I want to go back to your calls. I'm just getting to the point that we're raising the alarm, the watchman, the watchwoman on the wall, the Paul Revere, and I'm not the Paul Revere. We are all collectively the Paul Revere. Great tyranny is upon us, and it's our job to tell others about it. So sign up for the free newsletter we send out every day with exclusive videos, you name it, special articles at Infowars.com/newsletter. Just put your email in and then it's free. We can send you emails. You've got to opt in for us to send you the information. Send that on to your friends and family. Repost our stuff on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other platforms that are out there. I don't care whether it's Pinterest or Instagram. Just know you've got power. Know you matter. Know we're on the verge of really getting an upper hand on the globalists, and they know it and are scared. We're gaining the momentum right now. We've got the momentum. We just crossed over, and we're tied in this football game with a quarter left. This is the time for total intensity and just going into the zone in the information war. It's not about deciding you're going to win. It's knowing you're going to win and committing to it. I mean, do you really want to be a slave of these horrible control freaks that want to mess with our food supply and water supply and call us idiots in front of us on television and laugh at how they're ripping us off like Gruber's doing? I mean, are we really done? I'm going to go to your calls just briefly. 3 times a day I take my vitamin B12, especially in the winter, for boosting my body's natural defenses, immunity, you name it. I took elderberry this morning. I gave elderberry to my children. I gave vitamin B12, a secret 12 to them. I gave them a little bit of colloidal silver, which I don't normally do unless somebody's already sick, to bolster because of how bad the superbugs have gotten. I don't have to tell you about that. InfoWarsLife.com. We are selling out very, very quickly. We sold out of like 80% of it Friday through Monday, and now it's slowed down a bit, but it will be sold out at current sales rates by this weekend. So Secret 12 still available, InfoWarsLife.com, the first run of this special, super organic. It is the injectable form, but you take it in the mouth. And that's why it's so powerful. It's nutraceutical, super grade, the most powerful we could find. Took us 2 years to finally get this out. 80% is methylcobalamin, the other 20% is the other type of special vitamin B12 that fuses with it and causes more absorption from the research. You can read all about it, InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. We had sold out of Oxy Powder for a week or so. More Oxy Powder discounted with promo code NOW. And we are ending that tomorrow at midnight. So Friday, promo code NOW, 5% off, already what's discounted, lowest prices. It's gone. We're still going to offer until it sells out. It looks like that'll be this weekend. The Survival Shield X2 with the lung cleanse, 10% off in the Biodefense Pack. InfoWarsLife.com or the big umbrella site, InfoWarsStore.com for the books, the films, the T-shirts, all of it. And it doesn't just spread the word, doesn't just inform you to a higher level. It supports this entire transmission. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. And I want to thank all of the affiliates, the sponsors, the listeners, the good Lord above, my family, everybody that put up with me over the years, because we built something very special here, and you've got my commitment to do the best job I can. Doesn't mean it won't be obnoxious sometimes. Doesn't mean I won't fall down sometimes. Doesn't mean we won't fall down sometimes. But you've got a commitment here that we're together in this fight. I'm committed to the end, whatever the cost may be. We shall never surrender, to quote Churchill. I am committed, and in my soul, it feels good. That feeling of commitment, that feeling of doing the right thing, eclipses any fears, any regrets, anything 1,000 times. It's like joining my ancestors. It's like joining with God. It's committing to reality. It's being a man. It's doing the right thing. And it ain't special, folks. It's just doing the right thing. And it's what fulfills you. Not the baubles, not the narcissism, none of it. Doing the right thing in a good cause and committing and deciding you're going to uphold your family name is what it's all about. And I salute all of you out there that have done that. From me to you, God bless you. Let's go to John in Wisconsin, formerly Wisconsin, FEMA Region 5. Thanks for holding her on the air.
Yeah, Alex, how you doing today?
Good, brother. What do you think the next big shoe to drop is?
I don't know. I think this whole thing about the XL pipeline is like a hoax, and we're being played because you notice that all the Democrats are against it, and they're just pushing against the Republicans and this, that, and the other thing. And when in reality, it has no benefit to us. We're not getting any of the oil. We're not getting anything to do with that except, it make more jobs down in New Orleans loading the ships. That's about it. And all it's going to do, I think, is to further the North American Union.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you that most of our Western oil gets loaded on ships and sent to China at lower prices than we get, sold to the government at lower prices. They mark it up at higher prices than what we pay. I'm not disagreeing with you, but if you're talking about the Keystone, they built a $3 billion refinery in Corpus Christi that the federal government's been not letting them open for years. We haven't had one new refinery since like 1981, and this is economic sabotage. And then George Soros, who financed, along with Berkshire Hathaway, the feds not letting the Keystone get activated, they own the railroad. You can look this up. This is in Forbes, AP, you name it, that then transships from the middle of Canada and the east of Canada all the way over to the west to the super tankers to go to China and Japan. So, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't understand. You're saying you don't think the Keystone Pipeline will give us oil?
Well, I haven't heard any of that coming from any politician's mouths or anything. The thing is that are we going to be able to buy the gas for what they're selling it to China for, which is probably
no. No, I mean, obviously they're going to sell most of it to foreigners because they'll look. All I know is we need to be energy dependent, and Obama and others have been trying to block that for a long time. And George Soros doesn't want the pipeline. I mean, why shouldn't we have a pipeline to bring Canadian oil down here? I mean, that's all I'm saying is more oil means cheaper prices. And I know they're blocking that refinery. Now, they're saying that refinery may produce gas as well and sell refined gas. So who knows? We'll see what happens. I appreciate your call. I just kind of default when George Soros is for something, I'm against it. He's for taking my guns, I'm against it. He's for open borders, I'm against it. He's for attacking the family, I'm against it. He's for decriminalizing marijuana, I'm for it. But then him being for it makes me question my judgment. I don't know. Let's go to Maggie in Oklahoma. What do you think the next big shoe to drop is in 2015?
I think that our Justice Department has totally become corrupt, and the fact that it has is going to hit the fan very soon.
I totally agree with you. I think that the reason government acts like we don't exist anymore is they know that with derivatives and economic indicators being collapse level, no way to hold up the house of cards. It's like having a house of cards in your backyard on a still day on a card table. But even though it's a still day, a gust of wind will come by sometime that day and knock those cards over. And a watch pot never boils, but you're going to be looking out the back window, the kitchen window, and those cards are going to be laying all over the ground. And most experts we interview think the big collapse is in 2015. And I want to be clear. I'm not a voyeur for disaster. I'm not a collapse porn consumer. I hope this doesn't happen. I hope we can mitigate and have a soft landing. But the globalists are only accelerating things that will make the collapse worse. And we see government gearing up for collapse everywhere. What else do you think?
That this gust of wind has a name on it, and his name is Schaefer Cox. Schaffer.
Who is that?
He is a young man that was thrown into jail 2 years ago.
Well, I'll tell you what, send me some info, man, because I'm not aware of what you're getting into. Thank you. Chris in Pennsylvania, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that Americans are going to wake up on a massive scale, and we're going to get big government out of our lives and start ruling ourselves again like we were supposed to. And we're going to hold these criminals responsible for their crimes against humanity and take the info they have on how the world really works, on who we really are, free energy technology, and we're going to become free and prosperous again and show the rest of the world how to do it, and we'll live to be 200 years old and colonize space and explore the galaxy.
Sounds good to me. I know this. It's innovation that gets dead economies going, and the globalists are doing everything they can to give lip service innovation, but blocking it. And it is going to be freer energy, free energy. It's going to be things like that they're suppressing that would be the next, just like the silicone revolution, that'll be our next boom. Anything else, Chris?
God bless you, Alex.
God bless you. Now I'm going to take a ton of calls coming up in the next segment. Steve, Ken, James, many others, 800-259-9231. Our article that Paul Watson wrote about is there an Ebola cover-up going on is linked on drudgereport.com, going viral now, and I hope he adds more to that article of all the other stories, or this is on the left-hand side column, asking, is this Ebola? We should do a whole special report on the normalcy bias and how it creates learned helplessness, or what I call mass Stockholm syndrome. Alex Jones here, back live. Because the reason I'm trying to get people shaken out of their complacency is the globalists want to put you into complacency to just accept the most outrageous stuff. Oh, we torture people. Oh, we disappear people. Oh, we spy on you without warrants even though it's illegal. Oh, we give your kids flu shots without authorization. It's all illegal. And they go, oh, but the local government's not a bad group. The person you talk to is not bad on average, and that's true. They're compartmentalized and aren't overtly trying to be evil. But then they go along with the system and have now become compromised. And that happens in corporations, everywhere else. This country is in a crisis. It's starting to wake up, but we need to get fully awake. Steve in Florida, what do you see as the next big event or globalist staged event? I like the last caller because he was raising the point of a huge awakening happening in 2015, accelerating the awakening we've already seen.
Alex, I agree with Slim earlier. I believe they would like to initiate the model states, the Emergency Health Powers Act nationwide with mass vaccinations and perhaps a financial collapse. And I've not spoken to you since 99 or 2000, but I just met a young man just a week or two ago who placed Alex Jones InfoWars billboards in 13 major U.S. cities. I just saw one a week ago, and I'll name the cities if you wish.
Yeah, I'd like to meet the young man that did it and find out more and get other people to step up and do this. Yeah, tell us about it.
Here's the cities: Richmond, Virginia; Raleigh, North Carolina; Columbia, South Carolina; Pensacola, Florida; Birmingham, Alabama; Gulfport and Jackson, Mississippi; Knoxville, Tennessee; Shreveport, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Lake Charles, Louisiana; and Little Rock, Arkansas. He spent this money, his own money, because unless Americans wake up now, the nation is finished. He told me that to my own face. I've followed and supported and prayed for you for 20 years. I'm going to continue, and I want to encourage you, never give up and always stay close to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Steve, don't hang up. I recognize your voice. I mean, you were calling like 18 years ago, and I haven't talked to you in over a decade. You used to call all the time. It's great to talk to you, buddy.
Same here. I've been dealing with Gulf War syndrome, and a lot of the former Navy SEALs with whom I served and a lot of the Marines, they've died, but I continue to stay vigilant for our Lord and to support you.
That's right. I remember all the great intel you used to give us back on what was happening when they ordered the Marines. Remember, it was even in the newspaper to tell the kids, Bill Clinton wants you to know what martial law is like. Remember that?
Yes, exactly.
Wow, I remember. Yeah. So
I just want to encourage everybody listening. I've passed out thousands of flyers with InfoWars over the years. I just don't know who picked them up or whatever. I passed them out to people. I just thank the Lord that I had that ability. Now I'm pretty much too sick with Gulf War illness to do much except get on this phone and encourage anybody else that has legs and a brain to perhaps do a little bit or a lot, like this young man. $40,000 he spent of his own money because of what you've been doing for 20-plus years, encouraging folks out here to do it.
Well, let me know who this young man is. He needs to get in touch with us because there's all these businessmen and women and successful folks that we should create a database of stations, and then they can help put billboards up in those areas. Billboards are very inexpensive now because the economy is in so much trouble. So you can really get huge billboards that would have cost $10,000 15 years ago for like $1,000, including the printing. And it would be, and I think InfoWars isn't perfect, but it's one of the better things to promote. And absolutely, that's the reason we keep exploding is people like that. But, yeah, this fellow that called in used to give me a lot of intel on Special Forces stuff. All of it turned out to be accurate. And just God bless you. In fact, is Steve already gone?
I'm here. I'm still here.
So what kind of special operations were you in? I forget.
I was a supporter of SEAL Team 1 many years ago.
Well, God bless you, brother. Call back again. I hope you get better. We should pray for Steve.
Thank you for listening.
That's a guy for service for country. We'll be back. Stay with us. We'll continue to take calls when Doug Hagmann joins us coming up in the next segment from the Northeast Intelligence Report. I'm going to ask him what he thinks the big intel is on 2015, or as we get ready to close out 2014. Got about less than a month and a half left here. And we'll continue with your calls. And what do you think the big story is going to be in 2015? 800-259-9231. By the way, it's very humbling for me to have all these people looking up to me and all these folks counting on us. People think that it's the opposite of a bravada power trip when I seem arrogant. It's not arrogance. It's that I'm just so tired that I've got extra energy. I don't know how to explain it. I'm just committed. I just have done this so long that I've just kind of turned into a weirdo. I don't know how else to describe it. I just do this all the time. I've kind of become it. And it's so frustrating to want to know who's putting up all these billboards and thank them. Because so many times other people do stuff for us, and then I end up not thanking them or having time because I'm like a batter in a batting cage, and they've got 3 pitching machines shooting balls at me as fast as they can. So I just can't even hit half the balls. And I just know I love you all. I appreciate you all. It's very humbling, extremely humbling. I mean, it's humbling to have Drudge Report linked to our stories and Drudge to send out nice tweets occasionally. It's humbling to have Joseph Farah, you know, an icon in independent media, you know, admiring me and telling me he appreciates me. I mean, it's just, and all of you calling in doing it. That's why I say, please don't say it. Because when you do it, I don't know how to describe the psychology. I don't deserve it. I don't know how to describe it. I just, you know, I'm doing this to try to save my family. So thank you for thanking me, but it's very humbling. Let's talk to Ken in Illinois. Ken, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
We're all aware of these Chinese cities, empty cities that could hold tens of millions of people, and it doesn't make sense. Well, what if those cities are prepared for debtor's prison for American debt slaves? And the plan has been in the works for decades, and here's the basis for that. Before the Federal Reserve, which we know is private cartel evil, there was an act during the Grant administration called the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871, which bifurcated a human into a public persona and a private person. So there's Alex Jones, private person.
Then there's Alex Jones, the corporate fiction.
The corporate fixture, and we are debt chattel to American debt.
No, it's true. I mean, they do sell us as an IMF World Bank commodity. It's true.
Right. So what if there's, maybe it starts out voluntary, there's jobs in China, but what if it ends up being compulsory and we end up...
By the way, sir, they've already are bringing debt prisons back in Illinois and places illegally, but the judges and courts are just doing it. And they're already doing bail-ins where they grab part of your bank account all over the world. So, you know what? Used to, I'd laugh at you. The sky's the limit. I mean, there's no telling what they're going to pull. They already claim that the average American owes something like $200,000 on the national debt. I don't owe that money. I'm already paying more than half. I mean, it's a total scam. I hear you. What else do you think's coming?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, some people say, I think it was Harry Dent yesterday, talked about investing in RV stock. I'm afraid of once the collapse hits, it's going to be so frightening that we're all going to perish from fear.
I agree with you. I've got an RV, but it's too big, and I think I'm going to get rid of it and just get a quick, super reliable small one for just that type of scenario. Excellent point, sir. Thank you so much for joining us, calling in. Indigo Kid, I'm going to get to you first because we never got to you the other day. Then John, Ron in Hawaii, Barbara in Illinois, and many others. And we're going to have Hagmann and Hagmann on. I think he's going to have his co-host on with him as well. I'm not sure. But he's going to be joining us with what he thinks is coming up 2015. He's always got really good intel. So stay with us for that, Infowars.com. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're here. Waging war on corruption. Crashing to the lies and disinformation. You see, if Obama can come out and say that you didn't build your business or that your healthcare prices went down when they actually went up, and then no one challenges them, the lie then takes hold and sets the precedent of fraud. But if you crash through the lies and disinformation, if you scream at them, shut up, criminal liars, repeal your filth now, the debate's over. They're not up there in their suits with their fake moral authority lecturing us like we're peons down below the castle while they basically urinate on us from on high. Excuse my French, but that's what's going on here. It's like the scene in Monty Python with a Frencher, throwing garbage over the top at King Arthur. That's what it comes down to, and we need to let them know, hey, what you're doing is wrong, we're aware of it, and we see you. They want to create an artificial reality that we then just buy into, and that we don't have any facts, we just go along with what's trendy and what Charlie Rose says. Oh, look, all these women are paralyzed with neurological disorders. Gee, let's raise money for them. Let's not ask why ALS and Lou Gehrig's and all this stuff that was incredibly rare is off the chart. Hey, Cupcake, did you take a vaccine the day you got paralyzed like this? All we know is suddenly women have autoimmune disorders in their brains, and all of a sudden They have inflammation. Gee, don't tell them about all the treatments to try to bring down the inflammation. Just let them die. But don't worry, they're going to keep us safe while the border's wide open. 10-year-old suspended for pointing imaginary ray gun. That's up on Infowars.com. We have the powerful video of the Hillary Clinton talking nutcracker, as it tells all. It's real quotes. You got to see the talking nutcracker, invented by Infowars.com. I'm not kidding. We're not selling it, but it really is a talking nutcracker. Continuing, you got to see it. We just sent it out on Twitter at Real Alex Jones. Paul Watson's article's up on DrudgeReport.com. The reason I raise this is it's only Drudge that linked to our article when the Forbes writer came out and said, I was at the press conference and, you know, the media and AP and everybody agreed that if we think there's Ebola, the government's asked us not to scare the public. And the police have said that. The firefighters have said that. We've interviewed doctors by name who say that this is going on. And they don't even come out and say we're fearmongers now. They just ignore us. That story's up there. Joining us is Doug Hagmann and his son Joe Hagmann, that co-host Hagmann Hagmann, Hagmann.com. They head up HomelandSecurityUS.com. And I used to hear them, you know, on Coast to Coast like 10 years ago and think, well, these guys are pretty good, but a lot of this stuff's unbelievable. And then so much of it came true. Then they gave us a lot of intel over the years. It turned out to be very accurate. And they have a lot of good, well, he trains police all over the country and has a lot of sources. We'll just leave it at that. Douglas J. Hagmann is the founder and director of the Northeast Intelligence Network and CEO of multi-state licensed private investigative agency, serving many Fortune 500 clients. He's a member of the International Counterterrorism Officers Association, possesses many law enforcement-related titles, certificates, in addition to being used as an operational asset by the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI. During his career, Hagmann has developed numerous federal enforcement contacts. We'll get into that with him. He's the author of Tactical Surveillance, and he joins us with his son that co-hosts the show with him. Okay, I just wanted to get you on, not even on a particular subject, just to hear what your latest and most important info is, what you're really getting on Ebola. Because, I mean, look, I just know doctors that have come on record saying people look like they have it, they're being disappeared. Whether it's Ebola or not, why are they being disappeared? More and more, now this woman dies bleeding in New York, they're covering it up. So I want to ask you about Ebola, because I hope it's blown over, but I don't think that's what's happening. And then what you think's big in 2015. I want to ask both Hagmanns this here today. So go ahead, guys.
Alex, thanks for having us on. Hopefully it doesn't appear presumptuous that both of us are on, but...
I love having you both on. Go ahead.
Yeah, my son has done a lot of research on this. Let's just take Ebola for the first issue. Ebola that we're seeing here in the United States, based on our information, our intelligence, our research, our contact with people within the community, within the healthcare community, as well as DHS, this is not the Ebola Zaire. This is not the main hemorrhagic fever. This is a mutation of that. And we can see it based on the symptoms of the people that are getting the Ebola. Steve Quayle, I talked to him. You've interviewed him. The issue is, where's the blood, for example, being a hemorrhagic fever? It's interesting because the semantics speak a lot. They now have called this Ebola EVD, I believe it is, Ebola viral disease or something to that effect. The bottom line here with this is what we're seeing is a run-up to, we believe, and this is where he comes in, we believe we're seeing a run-up to a full-blown Ebola epidemic, pandemic, and we could be wrong, but based on our sources, sometime in early 2015.
So it's just like Obama hit it in plain view when he said, this is a test run for a worse viral strain.
That's correct. You know, it's interesting. They're telling us what they're doing, but people aren't listening. And the mainstream media is not telling anybody of anything. But what we see happening, and Joe's done a lot of on-the-ground research out of town and in town about this, what we're seeing here is really the run-up toward the big 2015. Well, it's not really going to be a pandemic, but it's going to be enough to cause medical martial law, geographically specific medical martial law. We saw a woman drop dead in Brooklyn while she was getting her hair done. They said it was a heart attack. She's bleeding out of different orifices. Okay, fine. It's possible.
And she just come out of Africa and was on the watch list.
Exactly.
And let's get Joe's take on this, and then I want to move into other subjects with you guys. I want to cover the waterfront and take phone calls today on what you see as the big crises, but also positive things in 2015, what you see coming in the next year. But, Joe, you've been focusing a lot in on the Ebola. From your research, is it an Ebola simulant like a lot of people think, including CIA people we've interviewed on air? And then if it is a simulant, why cover up people that then have the symptoms? Why disappear them? Is it a test at disappearing people? Is it a test at controlling the media?
I would say all of the above. And one of the best quotes I've heard and found so far is that the disease is in the vaccine. And initial reports from Liberia, if you remember, they were talking about the citizens in Liberia were saying how Ebola was a hoax and the vaccine was really the problem. Now, I don't know if this is Ebola or some mutation of it, but this is definitely in advance in preparation for their new federal healthcare architecture system of governance that they're going to be implementing. And this is part of the Federal Register. They have dates for compliance from 2015 through 2018 until, and they're going to do pilot programs, or they can do it through a declaration of an emergency. And either way, it's going to be coming. And what they're doing also is implementing part of the economy. The new economy will be also under this healthcare architecture.
That's right.
Excellent point. Keep elaborating, Joe or Doug.
I got to tell you, Joe has over 8,000 pages printed out, and we're going through every page. The groundwork, the architecture for this medical martial law that really combines the medical surveillance medical
surveillance through medical devices that will be mandatory. They're setting up an international universal healthcare system under the United Nations, and it's public. The United States has signed on to it. Even the president.
Incredible.
One of his first executive orders Barack Obama put out was 13-521, establishing a commission for the study of bioethical issues, in which it states that it may examine broader issues not linked to specific technologies, but not limited to the protection of human research participants, scientific integrity, and conflicts of interest in research, and the intersection of science and human rights. Now, what would cause a problem between the intersection of science and human rights, aside from some kind of
pandemic
or device? Correct.
And by the way, when you guys are saying this, it's completely spot on and really puts the pieces together. They're using AFRICOM to go in with a cover to set up bases in Africa. The troops are doing valiant work and helping people. They're compartmentalized, but still the larger system is they're the PR front that goes in. We predicted this back when Obama first got in. He's kind of the poster person to allow that invasion of Africa, obviously with the skin color and the African roots. And then you look at the medical tyranny of Obamacare, taking over society, the systems, the control, and then they basically tell us it's a trial run. Why do you think they flaunt it like Gruber, a new video out making fun of the American people? Now it's 9 videos calling us idiots, calling us stupid. Ha, 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 he ripped us off. Why do they love to gloat?
Well, Alex, you've said this so much on your program. You know, they tell us what they're going to do, and then they laugh about it when they do it right in front of our faces. And Joe and I were talking about this, and then he did a lot of research on Gruber and the whole basis for this. What this is spiking the football, if you will, in the end zone, at least on the part of the Obama regime with respect to the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act.
And they're coming to a point where a lot of their information and publications they put out are coded with references in English language, but it's hard to understand because they have their own language they use. And now they're starting to release in plain English what they're going to do, and the documents are finally coming together where they're giving you the definitions, their definitions of, for example, they say a human subject will be used as a scientific research participant on a voluntary basis. But it goes on to say voluntary is not, it's not as it sounds. Voluntary means compliance or consent to be used as a participant, but you have to be, there's under USC 42 that says if you are mentally disabled or disabled, and the term of disability means if you cannot do things, and I'll read right from the law, if you cannot care for yourself for manual tasks, seeing, hearing, eating, sleeping, walking, standing, lifting, bending, speaking, breathing, learning, reading, concentrating, thinking, communicating or working, it's classified as
Sure. Stay there, guys. I want to come back and look at this more. This is very important. Calls are coming up. Other issues we're going to look at with you as well. But as soon as Bill and Melinda Gates and all these big companies started investing in this a year ago and all these vaccines were getting ready, I just said, get ready for Ebola, because they got their vaccines rolling out. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We don't just need to lie down to evil. We can stand up against it. Evil isn't the only force in the universe. That's the bottom line. Your phone calls, Ron in Hawaii. And we're going to talk to Barbara in Illinois and Indigo Kid in Colorado first when we come back. Ramon, Kevin, and many others on what you think the big event will be in 2015 or maybe even this year. What's the next shoe to drop in the organized global crisis that the New World Order is clearly orchestrating and admitting in many cases they're orchestrating? Finishing up with medical tyranny, there are now reports coming out every few days I see where schools are inoculating children without consent. They're really pushing the vaccines. They're trying to tell nurses they'll be fired if they don't take all these vaccines. They're intimidating people. They're lying and saying it's the law. Finishing up with Hagmann and Hagmann, Doug Hagmann and Joe Hagmann, father and son team, investigative journalists and private detectives. Finishing up on Ebola, then I want to shift gears into what you think the other big events are. And one of the people, Barbara, asked from Illinois, and we're going to go to her, she thinks government coup may be the next thing. Well, it's already a coup if Congress lets Obama have all these executive orders on immigration, you name it.
That's right. You know what, Alex? I got to tell you, the coup is happening, and it has happened, basically. You talked about this, the right-left paradigm. It's gone. It's gone. In fact, we just talked to a source this morning out in D.C. who said, watch over the next 30 to 60 days, especially over the next couple of weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving holiday, where you're going to see Republicans and Democrats work together and force through or allow an executive order on amnesty. And everyone's throwing out this 40%. Well, Reagan signed an executive order allowing 40% of illegal immigrants some sort of allowance to remain here. Well, that 40% back in 1986 is a whole lot different than the 40% in 2014. But the fact of the matter is, the immigration is a big part of it, and just to wet people's whistle a little bit, toward 2015, especially toward the fall, you're looking at a major economic collapse. This is all being hidden. I mean, at the end of the road, Alex, what we're seeing here is the cover for a major economic collapse and the establishment of a digital currency that is going to mesh with the medical biotronics that we're dealing with right now.
That's right. Obamacare is the NSA rollout and legalizes a lot of NSA spying that's already going on to tie everything together. I mean, it's just so cold-blooded.
Exactly. And you pointed this out so many times. The flood of illegal immigrants, the legitimization of the illegal aliens here in this country, flooding our hospitals, bringing with them the diseases being dispersed all across the United States. The Cloward Piven strategy is at play here. And ultimately, they need somebody to blame for this monetary meltdown that will occur, that'll take the U.S. dollar out. And what better excuse to say, hey, we never saw the Ebola crisis, or insert the pandemic here.
Bird flu, SARS too, who knows?
We just couldn't have ever. I mean, who'd have thought this? Who'd have thought this? And that's what they're doing. They're setting us up. It's all a big lie. The lie is just bigger at every single level.
Absolutely.
And that's what Joe has done.
You know, with this, some examples on the Ebola is not following standard operating procedure and actually seeing things that are opposite of common sense. Is when they warn about the dangers of Ebola and how much it is affecting people in West Africa, yet they keep travel open and they don't restrict it. There's no precautions taken, and they're flying people with Ebola here. I think it is more of a covering than to worry about the Ebola. I think it's a cover for what is coming down the line economically. The IMF is asking or demanding more power and a consolidation.
Well, it's just like we're under the UN with our military in Africa. They use all this where there's a global response. You don't control it at your border. You open your borders up, and then you have to go clean it up in Africa. This is what they said in the SPP documents, that they would use pandemics to bring in global government, so they would have continent-wide and transcontinent responses, not national responses, emasculating the national response forces or putting them under the UN. And by the way, in case you didn't hear it, folks, here's Obama saying this Ebola crisis is a trial run. Here it is.
And in many ways, what this has done is elevated that importance. There may come a time, sometime in the future, where we are dealing with an airborne disease that is much easier to catch and is deadly. And in some ways, this has created a trial run for federal, state, and local public health officials and healthcare providers,
That's
as
right.
well as the American people.
Going under federalization. We're going to come back with Hagmann and Hagmann straight ahead. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Their site is HagmannandHagmann.com. Your calls are straight ahead, and then they'll give you their response and more of their take and their sources on what's coming in 2015 and how to stop it. We're here Monday through Friday. And don't forget, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock Central, Infowars Nightly News, with myself and the rest of the great news team. We've got our reporters in Ferguson, Missouri, and they're going to be joining us at the bottom of the next hour. They've discovered quite a bit. We've got, of course, the host of Hagmann and Hagmann.com, Doug Hagmann and Joe Hagmann, his son, that do a great job. I want to get their take on what's happening. Before the Trayvon Martin thing, he said the goal will be race war. And then after that, they said, look for more. That's what our federal sources are saying, stirring that up and allowing groups to piggyback on demonstrations and to carry out violence. And what we found in Ferguson, we have it on video, is we'd find Molotov cocktails cached. We'd find people doing looting. The cops would not go after them, and they would shoot our reporters with rubber bullets for trying to be helpful. They would go out of their way to attack even mainstream reporters and then say they hadn't. That level of lying discredits them. But it's the federal training. And that's why you notice the governor wouldn't say the state was in charge 2 days ago in Ferguson. So, gentlemen, I want to go to calls directly. But Ferguson, your take on Ferguson and that verdict that they keep saying is imminent, and now they're waiting while the temperature goes up and more people get on the street. What do you have to say about the Ferguson situation?
Okay, I've got a source right now in D.C. within the DHS who said that this is a DHS operation, Alex. It is, in fact, it's not limited to Ferguson, as you have reported. This is going to be an attempt to hit all the larger urban areas across the United States. It's going to look like it starts in Ferguson, but it's going to extend in other cities. And if people are familiar with the riots back in 68, 67, 68,
sure.
Cleveland, all of this, they're trying to redo that, make the Watts riots look like a picnic with this particular agenda. Look, it's all theater, Alex, and you know that. And it's all propelled by the very people who say they're trying to stop it. Just as you found your reporters in Ferguson on the ground, we have that same information from D.C. saying, Alex Jones, right on the money. The reporters right on the money. This is an orchestrated method.
Well, here's what I know. You tune in to MSNBC, and you've got known FBI informants like Sharpton, caught provocateuring stuff in New York for decades, stirring up racial division. You've got all the usual suspects, and then major Facebook and Twitter accounts calling for going to cops' houses and killing their families, calling for burning things down when the verdict comes out. I mean, if I put that out, I would be arrested within 24 hours, and I should be. So there's the telltale sign. Why are they letting violent people organize and try to take over the protest? That's your telltale sign right there.
Yep. This is going to be OJ 2.0. I saw the footage of your reporters standing near Al Jazeera TV in Ferguson in the initial riots that were going on, and yet they got tear gas, but yet the looters were allowed to go. This is all part of the, and notice that you reported on this first also, that the Department of Defense released a civil operations manual for how to deal with disturbances and riots. It's not a coincidence that was released right out on the heels of
D-Day,
yeah. Yep. And this is what they plan on doing. They're training, they're using these, they're hyping this up so they can start the riot, so they can use it as training exercises for when the big one comes.
Yep, exactly.
Conditioning.
So it goes back to the same thing. You can see the scientific dictatorship in its own words. They admit creating the stimulus, creating the crisis, and then gauging it and testing for bigger events. The problem is their false flag terror attacks and winding up the Muslim extremists and protecting them. Our own military's wise to that now, even in the high-level officer level, and isn't going along with it. That's got to really be checkmating much of the globalist program. Let me ask you this, and we're going to calls. How are things going for the globalists right now from your perspective?
They're doing great for them.
Oh, yeah.
They think everything's going as according to plan. You know, everybody is going to be so sick and tired of the disorder, the rising prices from inflation to the instability of the economy. They're going to create so much disorder, and they have the plans and architecture set up to deal with it the way they want to, that people are going to be begging for whatever order they bring back in.
That's right. I mean, it's over talking, but the very people who are criticizing the military on the streets today are going to be begging for that tomorrow, post-Ferguson, post whatever riot situation.
Well, again, they love to attack the average sergeant or something on the ground who doesn't know what's going on, just doing their job. And if it's unconstitutional, they shouldn't, follow orders, obviously. But it's like blaming the average cop. It's so easy to do that. We should all blame ourselves for letting the system get in place and not being sophisticated enough to see the psyop. Because if you just blame the cop, that creates the us against them mentality that separates us, and we fall right into the plan, creating the gang mentality of balkanization that the social engineers say they're engaging in.
Just like the 1%, let's get the rich. When we see austerity measures in Greece happen, what did they do? They wanted to go, rob and take over the 1% and accumulate their wealth. And this is the mentality they have. So we are not worried about fighting against them. We're too worried about fighting against each other instead of coming together.
Exactly. And the 1% is not the guy that owns a pool company or a Corvette dealership or 5 restaurants. That's who gives you jobs. That's upper middle class or nouveau riche or wealthy. It's the ultra rich that ran all that in Greece that are offshore, let the collapse, they call it the IMF riot, drive down prices even more to then buy the country up. Nobody's going to loot the billionaires that are ordering Greece to hand over its islands to them so they can be private resorts on the debt they owe them, which isn't even their debt. Greece signed on to the bankers' derivatives, bail them out, and then are owned by them for bailing them out with the very money. These scams are incredible. We're going to go to Ron, Barbara, Indigo Kid, Ramon, and everybody else, Kevin in a moment. Indigo Kid, then Ron in Hawaii. You're calling from Colorado. What do you think the big event is in 2015?
Well, weather modification is something I'm looking at right now quite a bit. For example, I sent you an article that I've written about how the Colorado flood of 2013 was due to cloud seeding. And there's even a CBS News article out about how cloud seeding is being used by the government to fight the drought that's going on. And basically, you have to read the article, but it's really all about water wars and tactical droughts and how big cities like Los Angeles and Las Vegas are paying for Colorado, for example, to cloud seed year long, which causes flooding. It's dangerous with all the...
Well, that's right. There's massive declassified global, from Africa to the Middle East to Asia to Russia to Europe, the U.S. to Central and South America, international, UN, Department of Energy, private corporate. Bill and Melinda Gates get paid billions a year to their private consortium to run a bunch of this over us. That's declassified, but what they're doing is classified. Then you tell the average person, they look at you like you got 14 heads. That's a great point. What about weird weather? What about going into an ice age? What about... all the changes we see going on, and then no one's discussing that it's weather warfare. Doug Hagmann, your take on that?
Well, I'll say this to the caller: think bigger. That's one spoke in the wheel of global tyranny, the weather modification. However, it's an important one. Water wars in the West. I understand that. We understand that. It's about the control, ultimate control over everything. See, it's now coming to a head, as we can see. Really, that's my answer. And it's interesting because as we sit here in our studio today, 50 miles from us, people can't even get out of their doors because of the level. I mean, snow up to the top of the doors in Western New York. And we had weather oddities here. I guess, and you take that, it's all part of the globalist plan.
But see, that's how they cover up the Ebola. There's obviously Ebola cases, they're covering it up. There's giant weather modification, they're covering it up. There's just, who knows what else is going on. Caller, I appreciate your point. Anything else?
No, that's it, except for, I think, maybe future false flags involving Asia, like North Korea.
When did you send the article, or send it again to showtips@infowars.com? I want to see what you talked about. Thank you so much, Indigo Kid. Let's talk to Ron in Hawaii. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with everything these guys say. They're doing a full blast. They're not even slowing down at all. From the Ebola to the staged, threat, thing over there from Missouri. And over here in Hawaii, they got at least 20,000 immigrants that showed up over here. Hello?
Yes, sir. You're on the air. Go ahead.
They just keep going on and on and on. And what it calls the marijuana thing, the fat guy's in it, like you said. Hey, I'm with you. If he wants it, there's a reason. It's got to be genetic pot.
Well, you're right. They've been manipulating the marijuana genetically, and who knows what they're putting in it. Another great point. That's the thing. When you got 7.5 billion people and you got mainstream media deceiving folks, it doesn't matter if they're discredited because they can still just put out disinfo to where we don't know what's really going on. That's why police are being trained that a citizen with a camera is the biggest enemy, because that video or audio they get can then discredit what the establishment says. That's why when I first told people about 6-7 years ago that all the new iPhones coming out and droids would soon have kill switches in them where they hit one button citywide or countywide or in a certain square block area, it's whatever area they want. None of your video cameras will work. None of your internet will work. They can shut you off. This is the type of stuff being built into the grid. Guys, going to Joe and Doug, what do you think about Obama's call for taking over the internet to protect it? I'm for net neutrality. But Obama's run by the very same corporations that want to get rid of it. He admits he wants to tax it and control it. And so by claiming they want to protect the web, that's how they can destroy the web.
Well, exactly. Let me just speak at one thing that your last caller said. Alex, if there's nothing else anyone could take away from what we're talking about today, please, everyone, buy a dash cam, a self-contained dash cam. Record everything that goes on every time you're in your car. Okay, back to your question now. Joe, go ahead. The net neutrality.
Yeah, the net neutrality is what they want to do is control the content. It's not so much the worrying about who's using how much broadband or how much percentage of the internet's being used by. In this example, Netflix gets 36% of the internet traffic, yet they pay same rates as people who use 0.5%. It's not about that, as they state. They want to control the content of what is being distributed on the internet because it is like the it's the Wild West.
That's right.
The only thing we have left with any semblance of freedom and non-censorship, except for the fact that they're finding ways now, and you've been a victim of this, and we have too, of the search engines from Google to AOL, all these different internet companies that suppress through their search functions and filters. So when people search for you or a topic you've covered, it gets suppressed and it does not appear as it should at the top of the page, or it doesn't appear at all under the news feed or under certain areas. And that's just one way. They suppress numbers, and it's never ending.
And again, they're wargaming how to fight the people right now. That's why it's important that everyone out there listening get involved immediately in having your own little media operation, putting out what you think, shooting videos, showing folks what you've seen, so that they can't suppress billions of people. They can't suppress hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. If we all start putting out our common sense, their attempt at the background noise of fraud and disinfo will basically implode. Let's go ahead and go to Barbara in Illinois. Barbara, you're on the air.
Yes, hello. I feel that there's a rumbling of the people are like waking up. And I think that also the military has not had enough of this president. And I think somehow I'm the one who thought there'd be a coup. But I also feel there might be even an assassination attempt on the president. Because I think there's enough angry... there's just such anger out there now.
Well, by the way, oh my gosh, well, Obama was unpopular until he was assassinated. God forbid the last thing we would ever want would be for Obama to get assassinated, because then he could be turned into a martyr, and then they could lionize all the horrible things they've done in his name, and then say that you want to kill somebody if you're against Obamacare or against turning your guns in. In fact, I've been saying this for 6 years. The real false flag could be an assassination of Obama, or it could be an attempted assassination. But don't think that even though he's their Harvard minion and their golden, idol, don't think that the globalists wouldn't be above assassinating him to create a martyred deity out of him. Doug Hagmann, Joe Hagmann, your take on that statement?
Go back, Alex, go back to the funeral of Nelson Mandela. Tell us, I mean, that guy, that fake
sign language interpreter.
Yeah, that guy. Okay, was feet from world leaders, including Obama. Recently, the two jumpers over the fence. One guy getting into the West Wing of the White House. Explain how that happens. Maybe that's just a message out there. I don't know. We were looking at this because, in fact, we were talking to a Secret Service agent who said, it almost looked as if they wanted this to happen. In fact, the Secret Service agent, President Protection Detail, formerly under Bush, W. Bush, is saying that, look, this is also a theater. Perhaps there is a message being sent. Keep to our game plan, keep to the script, or you're expendable. Joe?
Yeah, I pray for the president and his safety, because you want to see a Ferguson in every city USA.
Yeah, that's right.
And that happens. That's what it will look like. And as you said, they will turn him into a martyr. And regardless of that, I don't even know if we get to the point where there would be able to be written history by people in the U.S. because of the chaos that would create. Absolutely. We're headed there anyway. We don't want to accelerate that process. And his safety is something that people need to be praying for, because just like an EMP attack that could happen from a country launching an attack, or the sun having a flare, that will stop society dead in its tracks, all the progress we've made, good or bad, and create chaos instantly.
Well, can we force the Republican leadership to rout what the Democrats have done? I mean, Boehner's coming out saying the president is flagrantly untruth and being untruthful. Now they're saying they might try to repeal Obamacare. Well, they better repeal it. I mean, isn't it up to us holding their feet to the fire?
It is up to us, and this is why we've got to the point we've gotten to. I don't believe that any changes came from the midterm that will benefit the country. I believe we lost, regardless of who wins. And at this point, because of our lack and our grandparents and their grandparents' lack of holding the politicians accountable, this is why.
But repealing Obamacare, by the way, the damage has already been done.
All right, well, hold on. Explain that when we come back. Then we'll talk to other folks that are patiently holding, like Ramon. Our guest will be with us 5 minutes to the next hour. Then I'll continue with calls and other breaking news. And then at the bottom of the hour, reporters join us from Ferguson. Here's what we're getting at. Globally, we're in the hands of social engineers that aren't building an economy based on what is higher quality, what is more resources, what is a more enlightened, egalitarian society. No, it's a destructive Agenda 21, make you poor, austerity, dumb down, death panels, don't take care of the old, kill young babies after they're born. It's a very ugly world. Socially engineered and run by eugenicist bean counters. And I don't think we want to be part of it. So I'm just here assaulting the fraud, showing who's behind it, indicting them in the court of public opinion. And it's having a big effect. You're having a big effect. Look at how accurate our research and our view of the world is compared to what the establishment's saying. Because the globalists brag to each other. They write books. They're very public. You don't think I just made all this up 20-something years ago, 22 years ago, 20 years ago on air, and then so much of it came true because I had a crystal ball or I was a good, guesser. They've all bragged about it, and that's what's frustrating. I want to go to Ramon and to Kevin and Chris and Joseph and Sledgehammer and everybody else talking to the Hagmanns. But any other areas, any other big stories you are looking at, any other angles you guys haven't talked about yet?
Alex, a couple of things in terms of the geopolitical world, in terms of what's going on in the Middle East. Watch Syria. The objective to take over Syria, Assad, has been prime. It's not off the table. That is going to spark additional tensions with Russia. That, of course, will also, and by the way, the gas prices coming down here, the refined oil product and the crude oil product is part and parcel to the attempted takedown of Russia. This, and I know it's hard to believe, but in just a few moments here that we've got, people have to understand that everything that we're seeing happen on the world stage is related and interrelated. So watch Syria, and domestically here, the ultimate objective.
Well, sure, they admit they're lowering oil prices at OPEC to bankrupt Russia. I mean, it's just the general public doesn't, read what OPEC's publicly saying. But yeah, there's an energy war going on. Aren't we approaching one of those times in history when more happens in 5 years than happened the previous 100?
Yeah, and they call it the tipping point. And what they're doing now is they're poking the bear, seeing exactly what is the most efficient and effective and fast way for people, them to push society to the tipping point. And this is why we're seeing, these Ebola pandemics and everything being hyped so much in the mainstream news. And the reason that you're doing such an effective job and our show's been growing is because it's just the truth. And the truth is popular. And none of the networks on TV and barely anybody wants to tell the truth anymore. But just the truth alone. It has power.
Well, yeah, they're a bunch of yes men and women who just want their paycheck. But at a certain point, when everything implodes, they've sold their family out. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. I mean, it's not like we're being conquered by, the Romans and we're living in mud huts. We're going to be living better or something. I'm not saying the Romans were great. We're being conquered by exterminist globalists. They might as well be flesh-eating, aliens from Alpha Centauris. I mean, they're bad news.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and the subtlety that they do, that they've been able to influence and now corrupt and persuade and change the perceptions of the people of this country to start conforming and accepting the things that they would not normally do. It's been so effective.
Well, yeah, it's like the trusted traveler thing. When you go to a TSA interview and they put you in the system and now you only get searched a little bit. That's how it always used to be till they staged 9/11, folks. Stay there. I want to come back with phone calls, gentlemen. If our guests can do it, I'd like to continue on till about 20 after with them taking phone calls. I'll ask them right here on air. I forgot to do it during the break. Joe Hagmann and Doug Hagmann of HagmannandHagmann.com. Popular internet talk show that millions now listen to in the aggregate every week. I mean, if we had like 5 million listeners 10 years ago and it's 18 million a week now, and these guys had a few 100,000 a few years ago, now they have millions. How will the system deal with that? Well, with regulations, hate speech laws, you name it. Go ahead.
No, you know what, Alex? Interesting point. Everyone is looking for that kill switch to the internet. It's better now. In fact, our source this morning, one of the sources this morning from D.C., telecommunications specialist said, they're doubling down on the management of the information. They found that they can manage us better by through different means, as opposed to just shutting down the internet or recreating.
Well, yeah, they had the czar come out, who's a known, fixer, and just told the controlled media shut up and say there's no Ebola, and then just disappear people. So instead of just shutting the web down, they just flood it with disinfo.
Exactly.
Absolutely. They're trying to, as I'm reading one of their own documents, using positive and negative reinforcements, whether laws or incentives, to change the perceptions and norms of people to affect behaviors and outcomes for the way they seek to reinforce and to change society.
Basic psychology being used, psych warfare against us. Ramon in Florida, thanks for holding.
What's going on, brother and gentlemen? It's been a while since we've spoken, but the question you were asking earlier is what's going to be the top story of 2015, and in my opinion, it's going to be that some libertarian grassroots candidate is going to come kick the butt out of every other Democratic and Republican, operative that the system is going to throw at us, because since 2007, there's been a growth in the underground and people that's been understanding what's going on and what we need to do to affect change. So I believe that's going to be the biggest story. I
agree, and that's why they want to start racial division in the country by hyping it up, hoping that people don't come together for liberty.
Absolutely, man. Me and my boy Crip Ron Paul have been traveling up and down the East Coast to different libertarian-minded events and freedom events, man. And everywhere we go, in every city, everywhere we've gone, people all feel the same way. They feel the change, and they know something's coming, man.
Very interesting points. God bless you, Ramon. Anything else?
Nah, other than the fact that you guys, the Hagmans, all you guys have been doing great work. You know what I'm saying? We're out here supporting you and doing our thing. You know, we got our own show now, the Revolutionary Cuss Show. We're trying to bring, you know, people from the ghettos of America into this movement because they need somebody to look up to and somebody to show them that it's not just white America or people with, you know, middle incomes, middle class incomes that need to be a part of this movement. Everybody needs to be a part of it.
Well, that's right. We need Hispanic leaders that speak Spanish to reach out as well, because everybody wants freedom. Everybody wants to know how the game is rigged. Everybody wants the rest of the story, and it's there. All these people trying to get careers in media through the dying dinosaur. I'm telling you, folks, if you don't get involved in the COINTELPRO cognitive infiltration, infighting, you'll be successful. If you go out, start a blog, start an online radio show, focus, get guests on, because you care about freedom. And when the feds come and attack you through some proxy, if you don't turn around and start fighting with them and you know, you're a Fed, no, I'm not, and do your whole show about that, no one wants to hear you do a show about how you're not a Fed or how you don't work for the CIA or you're not Bill Hicks. That's a diversion White House admitted to get you fighting with each other. Just keep covering issues, get talking to other people, and that will bring the system down. Do you guys agree, Hagmann's, it's key to never be involved in infighting?
Absolutely, Alex, and thank you for thank you for saying that. Yeah, there's an unprecedented level of character assassinations, attempted marginalization out there right
Stay there. We're going to cover when we come back. For folks that don't know, the White House regulations wrote 3 papers, Chicago Business School, Harvard, and the White House, how they do this on the web. And let me tell you, they're doing it. The only time I mention it is so people understand the game. You try to go out and start a blog or something, talk about freedom, they're going to come accuse you of something horrible to get you to freak out and respond to it or quit. That means you're having an effect. Just ignore them, double what you're doing. Our governments have been taken over by scientific institutions, mega corporations owned by foreign banks that control the issuance of currency. They've taken over the planet by fraud and graft and insider dealings, not by innovation. The only thing they've innovated is being dishonorable and creating systems of mental manipulation and illegally engaging in psyops, which they've now legalized in once wealthy, virtuous nations. And so these crooks could run things and do horrible things. They've successfully dumbed down a lot of the public. The problem is you haven't dumbed down a large quadrant, and we are not going to be fed into the wood chipper head first. Sorry, not happening. President Obama, I don't know why I said Friday. President Obama to make the announcement on immigration tomorrow. It's already been made in January, legalizing all the illegals that are here, letting the parents come in with the kids. They're set to announce they're going to give basically the equivalent of political asylum to any child in the world. And Homeland Security is saying it's going to cause a giant influx. Prepare. They'll get here and basically get signed on to welfare and be wards of the state. This is how you checkmate a public that's waking up. I mean, a basic psyop is to say all Hispanics want open borders because Latin America's south of us. Their polls out were 65% or more of American Hispanics, and not just counting citizens, but just polled. A lot of them who aren't citizens said no. I mean, they're running from the third world. We will turn into the third world, as Ross Perot said, if this continues. It's already happening. And then it's political checkmate because we're just a third world country. And that's what this political elite want to do. They really want to conquer gun owners. They really want to conquer the churches. They really want to conquer and really have their way. We're the enemy to the fascistic, mentally ill left and their Republican cohorts at the top. Hagmann and Hagmann, I want to race through calls. Kevin in Canada and Chris and Carl and Sledgehammer and Joseph, and get quick comments on what they think the big event is in 2015 coming up. But I think this amnesty has already happened and is the big event. He may even water it down tomorrow in what he says he's doing, because he's already done it by ordering the Border Patrol to ship the illegals in and complete the smuggling process. I mean, I don't see what else he could do. They're already giving him free welfare. He'll probably lie and say we're not giving him. I mean, I expect a whitewash tomorrow to pacify what he's already done. That's how PSYOPs works. What do you think, Doug?
Well, Alex, last night, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, all of the programming on MSNBC, painful to watch, but nonetheless, basically just confirmed everything you said. This, yeah, it's being laid out. There's nothing new under the sun. It's going to be, Alex, it's going to be a balkanization of this country through executive fiat. And by the way, with the imprimatur of the GOP Republican Party, this political paradigm is no longer functional.
That's right, just completely out of control. Joe, you've got a take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and this will speak to the lack of how politics or whether Republicans or Democrats will fix the situation. When we'll see Obama use an executive order such as the amnesty program, and when you'll see the House and the Senate not take any action to repeal it and just let it go. This is knowing that they're just, Obama's a figurehead. He's a puppet for the masters, a timepiece, if you will. He just reads what is written for him to read on the prompters, and he signs into laws the laws that are written for him.
And one more thing, just watch the arguments the arguments in favor of amnesty will be. It was done in 1986. It was done prior to that. So it is with precedent. That's the argument.
And by the way, Congress had already passed accompanying laws, and then Reagan simply directed agencies to comply with it. And that's what George Herbert Walker Bush, the numbers were much lower, and these weren't people with felony records. And did it make people end up voting Republican? No, it didn't, because the Republicans weren't handing out as much welfare. It doesn't work. And then you'll just have this immigrant group coming in, being enslaved by the next immigrant group they bring in. I mean, this is treason with a capital T. I want to go to calls, but the break cut you off. We were getting into Cass Sunstein, the White House regulations are 6 years ago, well, 8 years ago at Chicago Business School and 8 years ago at Harvard, but 6 years ago for the White House, codified it on how to go on the internet, how to spam racial division. It'll be the same robot spam as a white supremacist or as a black guy, calling each other names to get that going. They admit that's happening. They call them spam bots. They call them megaphones. They call them... the point is that's all going on. They'll also then attack your show, attack mine, trying to get us to respond to the character assassination, to make our show about that, so the millions of listeners tune in and tune out going, I don't want to hear about you all day. I'm only warning other shows how to not be destroyed, because I want competition. I want more people out there. I want an awakening. I want to be made obsolete. I mean, it's dangerous being as big as I am and, you know, tip of the spear here. I'm excited about all the success you and so many others are having. And so I know you've gone through that. But what's frustrating is we have the manuals. We know how they do it. I mean, do you see politicians responding to us when we attack them? No. Well, see, we shouldn't respond to fake, frivolous garbage or care. Now, when MSNBC says I'm behind the Boston bombings and deeply racist, I point out that they're bankrupt and a joke. But not because I'm even hurt by it. It just shows how they're whistling past the graveyard there. But brief comments on that, and we're going to calls.
Your comments on infighting are spot on. You know, we see it not only in the alternative media, but also as Christians inside the church. You know, this is what is distracting and taking up most of the time is people worried about fighting with each other and being right rather than coming together under the simple idea of freedom or the simple idea of whatever it is that we come together. And Cass Sunstein, as you mentioned, wrote and publicized many articles on how to manipulate and take over conspiracy theories. He had said you could ban them, you could create a tax, you can engage them in counter speech and through counterintelligence, and also, you know, manipulation, marginalization, and any and every effort they can.
We talk about cognitive infiltration specifically, yeah, where you go out and pose as someone, and I mean, here's an example. They will send out letters or emails where I attack some pastor or I say something or someone says I did, and then the person gets mad at me thinking, you know, if you don't see me say it directly, or if it sounds like it's edited, it's not me, and it doesn't hurt us. It shows how successful we are. The point is, in fact, it actually sends people to us, and then they find out it's not true. So a lot of these tactics are going to backfire. That's the good news. Let's go ahead and talk to Kevin in Canada. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hey, Alex, this is your 17-year listener from Canada here. I'd like to give you a comparison along with my theory of what's going to happen. My comparison is the relationship between the United States and Canada is a lot like the book of Mice and Men. And it really seems that America can't keep their hands off the nice and shiny things, and Canada, in turn, has to somehow come up with an excuse or somehow bail you out. I'm really wondering, instead of blaming the politicians, when is every American going to look in the mirror and realize that it's not the politicians' fault. It's not even the globalists. 5%, just like you've said before in your show. 5% is all it takes to overthrow.
That's what happened in 1776, and we're trying to have a cultural revolution of liberty. The system is set up for a physical confrontation, and we probably win that one as well. It's just that we're trying everything we can to try to fix this peacefully. Do you have any other comments?
Well, the other thing I'll leave you with is I heard you quote Aldous Huxley, so I figured I'd go and read one of his books. Actually, I listened to an interview on BBC in which he said that he could see a time in which people love their servitude. I think we're there.
Well, sure. We've played the clips of Huxley explaining that they were going to build this world. He wrote Brave New World in 1932, and you read it today, and it's actually coming true. Well, he said, this is our plan. He was part of a British government breeding program that was never classified with the 5 other families. Most of his siblings and people died. They were his brother went on to run the UN. I mean, these people, it's just so incredible. Thank you, Kevin. Hagmann and Hagmann, I'm going to skip this network break and go right to the bottom of the hour with you guys. I want to go to Chris and others that are holding, but at the bottom of the rabbit hole from your research, what's there?
What's there is the ultimate objective, of course, Alex, is the very simply a one world order, a one world financial system, one world religion, and a one world economic system. End of story. And that's what's at the as far as our research is concerned, that's what the end game objective is. And we've got to think bigger. Everyone has got to think bigger. The attack yesterday at the synagogue in Jerusalem, that's part and parcel to this in many respects. What's going on domestically and will be in Ferguson, part and parcel to it. The taking down of the U.S. dollar. None of this is happening by accident.
What about the attack on the Parliament in Ottawa? That guy looked like a total cutout as well. Again, we're not saying terrorism isn't real. The globalists are letting these people attack, and we shouldn't give our freedoms up because somebody goes and does that.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I think at the basis, I'm a Christian, and everything has been explained in the Bible, the attributes of the people, the falling away. As one of the last callers pointed out, you know, it is it's our responsibility as citizens of
humans,
right?
And as humans.
Well, you said it. At the bottom of the rat hole is Satan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's good versus evil, and it is you know, we see they're bringing out the animal nature or human nature of man rather than uplifting them to the spirit, leading them and pointing them to the spiritual nature, which is what we are all able to be. Right. But they're pulling us down to basic animal instinct through our own human nature.
Well said. That is exactly what is at the bottom of the rabbit hole is a spirit, a system, whether you believe in spirits or not, a manifestation through human interaction, through archetypes, if you will, that wants to kill, steal, and destroy and dumb people down so it can control them. It's the ultimate form of selfishness, and it's truly disgusting. Chris in South Carolina, you're on the air. Welcome.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for taking my call. I've been thinking about Ferguson, and I've also been thinking about how this all plays into a bigger thing. I believe Ferguson in itself is nothing more. You've often said that these guys are scientists that do scientific experiments. They're using this to understand how a martial law will work on a larger scale.
And to condition us that the martial law comes and goes and returns and maintains order, so we will accept the rollout of the International Stabilization Force that is in the RAND Corporation document. This is all planned.
And that goes along with the amnesty thing, because, see, the amnesty thing and the healthcare thing go together because they're all linked back to the UN. And if the only way to get us to accept it is to bring in a martial law. And because we're already in it, but to get us to accept it...
That's right.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, see, I mean, it's the Henry Kissinger quote to the CFR. and it was a Tribal Commission meeting, but they put it in the CFR Foreign Affairs publication back in '91. He said, look, Americans would never accept UN troops in Los Angeles unless there was the right crisis. But once there is the right crisis, they would accept it. I mean, you can search a stability police force for the United States that they first put out back in the 90s, and then James Jones, the head of the Security Council a few years ago, put it out again with an update. I mean, it's checkpoints on every corner. It's secret police. It's people being disappeared. I mean, it's East Germany on PCP and steroids. And they're just rolling this baby out. And the average cop's as good as pumpkin pie. On average. I mean, I'll be honest. There are a lot of bad cops out there. It's like they're bad people, but it doesn't matter because they're putting in the system where the nice cop doesn't know. They just say pick you up. They bring you to the place where you get put in a black van and taken away, and then it's kind of like we don't know. They go away in a black van. Folks, we're here. That's what this Ebola cover-up is about. They are just simulating and testing and probing and going, hey, Infraguard. Preachers are here to tell you to go to the camp when you're told. I told people about that 4 years before it was in the news. Then it was in local news. I mean, they're really probing. Great points, Chris. Anything else?
Yes. One more thing. You know how they have referred to the Ebola virus as the zombie virus? If you just type in ZMAT, what comes up is Zombie Military Attack Team. Why would they name that? And then I started thinking about some other stuff when you said how it changes the DNA. And so I did a cross-reference because I had seen something with something called Funvax and ZMAT2. And there is a cross-connection. I went and got documents. I was going to send them to you, and all of a sudden my computer went down.
Crazy. Well, let me just say this. We first reported this about 5 years ago. People didn't believe us, but a year later it started coming out. Marines and Army were training to mow down looters. And mow down masses of starving people in America. The troops freaked out about it, so they said, oh, they're zombies now. And so that's how they cover the troops training to mow down American citizens. See, it's all psyops. It's all psychological warfare. Thank you. Guys, you want to comment on the zombie kill training going on all over the world right now from Japan to the U.S.?
Well, absolutely. You know, and the word zombie, people think in their mind, you know, some kind of half dead, half alive, human, you know, mindless person. Well, it is not referring to that, some type of mutated person.
They're dehumanizing you like Hitler would say Jews were rats or Jews were vampires. They're dehumanizing everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, and because of this materialistic mentality in society we have, people have been hollowed out inside because they have been too consumed with the tangible things of the world that they can, you know, get their hands on and want. And when they refer to zombies, they're talking about when everything breaks down, the millions of mindless Americans.
That's right.
Not know where to look.
And they're telling you you're a zombie. They're dehumanizing you. They're preparing you, but they know within about 7 days, most people will steal. Within 10 days, most people will kill for food. Within 15, 98% of people in Pentagon studies, you can look up the study, will cannibalize. 98%. And I got to be honest, if my kids are starving and somebody's already dead, I'm going to probably start cooking. If I think I can get through it. And if you think you're going to get through the emergency, you will end up eating people. And this is all I know is they're doing the training, and it's insane. We just showed the news article on screen. I mean, you cannot. I say this stuff, and used to folks didn't know how to search engine something quick, so they thought I was nuts. Now they can look it up. I mean, it is just crazy. Let's go to Sledgehammer in Utah. Sledgehammer, you're on the air.
Yes, Alex, hello.
Welcome, brother.
I was wondering what everybody's opinion is of ISIS and what they're waiting for. They didn't strike on 9/11. Are they going to try to blemish our holidays with terrorist attacks? And are they going to try to hijack the Ferguson protests and expound on that?
Well, there are Muslim radical sleeper cells all over the country. They've been brought in on purpose by criminals in our government because when they attack, they'll be rock stars in their country. Their families will get paid off by the Saudi Arabian demon government. And then we will have our rights taken by the very system. And the cops will think they're taking our rights to protect us when ISIS is openly run by the New World Order. The difference is we're decompartmentalizing the police and others, and they're waking up. I mean, they're waking up big time. I appreciate your call. We're going to move quick, Sledgehammer. Doug, what's your take on what I just said?
100%, Alex. But ISIS is a creation of Western intelligence, of American CIA, British intelligence services, as well as France, Qatari, Saudi Arabia. And the objective here with ISIS, look, when you've got the Council on American Islamic Relations infusing themselves into the protests in Ferguson, that is a microcosm of ISIS at what they're doing on a world level. Okay, so they're being managed. ISIS is being managed. Our military essentially gave the keys to the Toyota Tundras parked over there in the Middle East to ISIS. We created ISIS. We funded ISIS. We are still doing it, and they are here in America. That's not to scare anyone, but that's just to alert people to say, look.
The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, they just repackaged they wanted to bomb Syria a year ago. They couldn't do it. They repackaged it so there was a perceived threat, and now they have the green light.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's take a couple more calls. Joseph in Colorado, thanks for calling. You're on the air. I'm glad you brought up the UN treaty.
Yes, Alex, thanks for having me on. I was listening to you and another gentleman, I forget his name, I think it was last week, and you were talking about something about December 24th, about America signing the UN treaty or something.
Yeah, Obama, well, I mean, the UN says it goes into effect then. Obama says he will implement regardless of Congress. The Senate has threatened him basically with impeachment if he tries it. The problem is they never live up to that. So, yes, they're officially going to try to implement it next year.
Now, do you think it's actually going to go through, or?
They don't care. It doesn't have to pass Congress, according to Obama. See, that's the whole point. He says he'll take your guns because he feels like it. He'll put our troops under UN control because he feels like it. He'll fund ISIS because he feels like it. He will open the borders because he feels like it. There's the headline. Merry Christmas. UN declares arms trade treaty to go into effect December 24th. And that's out of a New American Magazine from Joe Wolverton. We should get Joe Wolverton on this week. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I think is going to happen, though, for 2015, I think they're using the Ebola. Basically, I think they're really going to try to put people in the FEMA camps and everything starting 2015. I think they're going to declare martial law because of the Ebola, and I think we're just going to lose all our rights really soon.
Well, they're certainly already taking them all, but there is a big awakening to respond to it. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I'll have to get to Motorhead, Danny Kelly, and Carl and others after we talk to our reporters, Jakari Jackson and Joe Biggs in Ferguson. We're going to get the latest intel on what they've discovered. They're out there freezing their butts off. And then we'll finish up with your calls and some other news that's been breaking at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But tomorrow in Vegas, Obama, to make a statement on immigration Thursday night, they say to announce his executive orders. We'll see what happens. He said no troops to fight ISIS, and then he's sending them probably to actually put their shoes on for him. Hagmann and Hagmann, thank you so much for the time, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
All right, we need to get you back more often, every month or so, and get you guys on the nightly news, too. Hagmann&Hagmann.com, really great guys. Great research. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv are our sites. We'll be right back with our reporters on the ground in Ferguson, awaiting the verdict in the freezing witch cold. Stay with us. Okay, freezing their butts off in Ferguson, Missouri, are Jakari Jackson and Joe Biggs. And Joe Biggs is in front of the camera right now to give us his intel on where they're massing the police, what the preparations are, what the sources he's already ferreted in the courthouse are saying. Joe and Jakari are great at getting intel. They've been filing reports for the nightly news as well. And you better believe they're staying up there until this verdict comes in. I know Jakari's going to come back and take care of his dog in a couple days, so we'll send somebody to relieve him. But I know he wants to be there when the verdict comes out. But our great reporter's up there in Ferguson. And so go ahead first, Joe Biggs. What have you learned since we talked 24 hours ago here on the syndicated transmission?
Joe Biggs, Infowars.com. Right now I'm standing outside of the Justice Center in Clayton. Now, so far what I've heard is today the grand jury is supposed to convene, and tomorrow as well. We know that the police buildup has definitely, been larger over the past few days. The larger mainstream media news areas like CNN, CBS, Dateline, all that, they are here now set up waiting on the grand jury decision. So it seems like everyone's starting to get hyped up. The buildup is getting here. We were in Ferguson earlier on the streets of West Florissant, talking to some people as well. Everyone's starting to brace themselves for the verdict thus far.
Also, you guys were first reporting on a local report. It was later confirmed about them getting the guy fired because he showed DHS vehicles massing. I know you went and investigated some other areas where sources told you they were building up. What did you find?
Well, Roger, yesterday they had a setup, a police compound area setup. We went down there, and by the time we got there, they had already broken it down. You could see tire tracks where all the vehicles had left. So it looks like they're setting up a lot of mobile command centers, and they're setting up and moving around throughout the town. And it almost seems like they're trying to get a feel for the reaction of the crowds in the neighborhoods, what they're doing. But what we're able to do is get some intel that there was a police compound command center type deal being set up in a building between a Target and a Foot Locker off of West Florissant. We were able to go around the backside of the building. We saw some communications antennas set up around there. It looked like it was newly set up. And they had brown paper blocking the windows, but we're able to see up higher. Jakari's a taller guy. He's able to reach up with the camera, and you could see in where they had tables set up and everything like that. It was once used for a command center back in August, and it looks like they're setting up that vacant building once again for another command center. Everyone's ready to brace for the worst just in case it comes to that point.
Well, with the way the media has been hyping it, what do you expect to happen in the next 2 days when this verdict, I think, is going to come down? I mean, they might announce at the same time Obama's announcing the end of our borders, the end of the country officially, because this isn't a one-time amnesty. This is a total opening of the borders.
Yeah, that's supposed to be tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, tomorrow night.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's a very good chance that they could use that as a cover as well. Wait on that to be released, get a lot of people's attention pulled on that, and then have the Ferguson issue pop off as well, where the, what we saw back in August, police pointing sniper rifles at people, massive chaos, flashbangs, tear gas, chasing people, stripping people of their liberties, martial law. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point again, but we've talked to a lot of the locals in the area, and a very, very small percentage of people think nothing will happen. I would say the masses believe that there will once again be riots, but I was pretty shocked. They think that most of the anger is going to be pushed more towards this Clayton area, because this is where all the buildings, this is where all the politicians work who make the decisions for what goes on in Ferguson. So they're directing a lot of anger towards this town, and Clayton is a town that people are suspecting is going to be heavily hit by rioters, protesters, anarchists, provocateurs, and things of that sort.
That's right. That's the county seat. So they're not expecting it so much to be in Ferguson as they're expecting it to be in the county seat town.
And yes, and they're saying that's because people are more well organized. They're saying that because of, in August, they weren't as prepared, and the people just lashed out in anger, and there was nobody in control of the protests whatsoever. But based off of the feel that I've got from the people I've talked to, these groups, these protesters, they're a lot more organized. They have leaders. They've been planning for months on end, and this is where they're planning on coming to and doing their demonstrations at. And
sure,
who knows? Just
well, also, you found a lot of those Facebook and Twitters where they're calling for going to cops' houses. That's national news today, and attacking people. You ought to go do a report showing all these sites calling for violence for weeks that aren't getting in trouble. That, for me, Joe, that's real evidence that they want this to get out of hand, because you have a right to free speech all day long, and I'll fight for your right. I'm a big First Amendment advocate. Everybody knows that. But when you start randomly saying target some police officer's family, or you say you're going to burn down the county seat of the Justice Center, as they now call it, when you say that, you're organizing. I think these people aren't getting in trouble because I bet money they're federal informants or federal assets, like we've seen 9 out of 10. It's actually like 99 out of 100. The New York Times, he was forced to report, of where the FBI and others under this Justice Department go out and actually create whole cloth the groups and then lead them with Molotov cocktails, you name it. And just like you found Molotov cocktails, tried to tell the cops they didn't want to know, same ones they were showing in the press conference the day before. This thing stinks to high heaven. I wonder if the rank-and-file cop knows that there's some provocateuring going on. I know some of the cops have told you off video that they do think that's happening.
Yes, indeed. Another concern that I've heard amongst the citizens, but a lot of the chatter I'm hearing from anarchist groups, activists coming in from California, they're hearing that the biggest threat for the area is that people are going to try and shut down the power grid here. They're thinking that's the number one priority.
Yeah, that's terrorist right there. People can freeze to death doing that.
They want to shut down the power grid first, and then from there hit their other targets as well, because it'll be a lot easier. Security systems will be down, you know. So that's the biggest fear, is a power grid shutdown here in Clayton, throughout Ferguson.
Man, Joe, listen, you're getting all this incredible intel. Go do special reports on that in front of a power plant or a power station. Go ask people if they're worried about them shutting the power off. That's your headline right there. Provocateurs, threaten to target Ferguson power grid or Missouri power grid. I mean, that's huge.
That's everything I've found out just since I've woken up this morning. So I'm just trying to.
Well, no. You're doing an amazing job with Jakari. I'm just saying, get all these out in little reports. We'll write articles about it. Show where they're making these threats. That'll put heat on the police that aren't part of this to go stop them. Because yes. I mean, obviously, folks. It sounds like Obama targeting our power grid. I mean, that's. I mean, what are these, mini kaijus or something?
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of outside people who are coming here to start chaos in a town that they don't even have to live in. A lot of them are going to pack their bags up. They're going to go home somewhere else where they don't have to worry about their power being out, where everything's going to work fine. So it's funny that these people come in here and they're literally making these people suffer. And then they're going to go back home to a nice, cush, warm apartment, house, whatever, and not have to worry about it or not have to suffer like all these people are trying to cause suffering here in Clayton and Ferguson.
Well, let's expand on that.
Well,
anarchist, go ahead.
Well, from what I'm hearing, the reason they're trying to avoid Ferguson is because why do they want to hurt more people like themselves? They say they're planning on coming south. The South End is the more predominantly, from what I've been told, white neighborhoods, things like that. So
we should get George Norrie on for 10, 15 minutes. I know he's busy tomorrow to talk about this because George Norrie lives south of there. And, I mean, that is just insane. I mean, I don't care what color you are. A mob of folks come to burn down my house, you're going to get some big problems. And
well, Jakari Jackson did a man on the street earlier. We maybe spoke to people for 45 minutes because it finally warmed up today. He'll have more information on the people he talked to, but he asked people what they think about that, if they're worried about, the sale of guns going up, things like that. So he can bring that information to you in the next segment as well.
Good. Well, let me just say this. The Justice Department's been caught provocateuring in the Trayvon Martin. They've been caught provocateuring here. And I'm telling you, when you hear the word anarchist, they're all a bunch of Democratic Party trust fund kids. I've gone up against them that have punched me, hit me, death threatened me in Austin, in Denver, in L.A., in San Francisco, in Monterey, in New York. I mean, they come out of their way to mess with us because they want to confuse the public and not call themselves communist.
Well, the pesky group that's here right now, once again, is the RevCom, the Revolutionary Communist Party out of Chicago. They've kept people here thus far. Those are the ones that on days 1, 2, and 3 were in Ferguson back in August. Jakari Jackson.
Yeah, I want you to get in their face. I mean, you're always wanting.
I saw them get Molotov cocktails and light them and then hand them to youngsters who actually lived in Ferguson to get them to do it so they didn't have to catch the heat for it.
God, I wish you had video of that. I know you got video.
These guys are a huge problem in this town. They don't need to be here. Any of the protesting groups that I've talked to, they don't like them. They don't want them here, but they're not going to leave.
By the way, Joe, if you see somebody handing someone a Molotov cocktail, you are legally and lawfully obliged to tackle them. I mean, you know that, right?
Oh, well, I will definitely do that this time if I see it happen. I will turn.
Yeah, just because the cops won't do their job. But you know what? I shouldn't even say do that because the cops will probably kill you or something. I mean, I'm telling you, those commies work for them.
That'd probably be considered interfering with police business.
Yeah, not wanting to burn people's houses down.
Yeah.
And folks, we're not trying to bash the police. You found the Molotov cocktails. You saw that running around in the dark. And
I even went to the police officer and I brought it to their attention. I said, hey, sir, I know you guys are, everything's tense right now. You guys are worried for your safety. Everybody's really hot-headed. I was like, my hands are out to the side. Just look at me. But look over here. There's a bunch of bottles, the Molotovs and all that stuff laying under this bin. You guys might want to take care of it. And they just sat there and ignored me and told me, whatever. And then eventually they got used.
And you got video of that, but describe seeing the commies handing them out.
Yes, there was the one guy. His name is something Johnson, Greg Johnson, I believe. And he was in the big case, Texas versus Johnson in 1984. He was a communist who burnt the American flag. This guy is one who comes out here, and he's the main leader for the group that's coming out here to Ferguson. He is the one that walks around with a bullhorn, does all these chants like indict, convict, send them killer cops to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. He does that whole chant all the time, and then he goes around and he hands them off to people and gets them hyped up and hands them the bullhorn so they can start chanting stuff.
Wait a minute. You're saying you saw him hand a Molotov cocktail to someone?
I saw them with them, and they were grabbing them and handing them to people.
And the cops didn't do anything?
They don't care.
They're in on it. That's it. They're aiding and abetting. I am so sick of this. This government is so evil. How did we become such an evil country, or so stupid?
It's mind-blowing the links that the government goes to cover up this stuff. I mean, obviously yesterday it was like 17 degrees. Why would you not release the information then when people are too cold to get out? Now it's 43 degrees a day. I have one jacket on. I'm not.
Well, listen, you see him again, I want you to go up to him and say, I saw you with the Molotov cocktails. Why did you do that? We just got contacted by Bill Ayers. He wants to come in studio and come here and basically confront me. So I said, come on. But I'm telling you, these people are amazing. All right, well, let's get Jakari in there. Great job, Joe. You guys have a lot of courage being around all these people. The commies and the cops, and just what a joke, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. You bet. Okay, we're going to get Jakari in there and get his take, and then come back and take some calls from Danny and other folks that are patiently holding. I just can't handle it anymore. I mean, we don't see a lot of this in Austin. Our police, I got to say, are overall really good compared to a lot of cities. We don't really see this in Dallas, and they've got big problems and even attacked us for no reason, but I couldn't believe it on tape when he's like, here's the Molotov cocktails, and they didn't want to get them, and then they would just shoot them with rubber bullets. And the cops absolutely were targeting the media. And I just don't know. They ordered me, hey, shoot the TV reporters with the cameras 200 yards away for no reason. I'd say no. I mean, tear gas canisters, rubber bullets at peaceful people that have done nothing to you? What is your problem? And then you won't stop the people of Molotov cocktails. I'm going to throw up. Jakari Jackson, give us the latest on what you've discovered there and what the feel of the people are.
Jakari Jackson reporting from Clayton, Missouri, right in front of the Justice Center, awaiting the Darren Wilson verdict. Yes, Alex, we had a chance to speak to some people earlier today, and they were telling me these were people in Ferguson. I asked them, what do you think about various things going on in the city? What do you think about the Darren Wilson verdict? And most of the people were telling me that they didn't think that anything was going to happen really with Mr. Wilson. He would go on about his daily life. And then I asked the people, well, what do you think about the police presence? Do you think there will be more riots like there were last time? And people were telling me, yes, they do think that there's a possibility for riots, but they don't so much think it's going to be in the Ferguson area. They think it's going to be in places like this, like in Clayton, Missouri, like Joe Biggs was talking about, the people who are making the decisions. They don't want to continue to burn down Ferguson, thus is my understanding. They want to come, the people who are the provocateurs and want to do these violent things, they want to come and do them in cities like Clayton, where they can get close to the judge, the prosecutor, whoever they're holding accountable for these actions. Thank you, sir. That's a fan that just walked by there. So, that's the feeling of the people that we're getting out here more in the Ferguson area. It's just now people are starting to arrive out here at the Criminal Justice Center. We have more media out here now. So I think everybody is anticipating the verdict to come out pretty soon because we see larger news agencies coming out here. They got their satellite trucks out here. So I'm pretty sure they're expecting it to come down in the next couple of days. But, we've been running around the city, Alex. We've been trying to find all these DHS vehicles, as we've been reporting on, and as you touched on earlier about the Navy veteran who lost his job for reporting DHS vehicles at his hotel. And then we heard, as Joe said earlier, the Quick Trip gas station that has some vehicles outside their establishment. We went out there, they were gone by the time we got there. So it seems like there are many instances going on.
There's a cat and mouse situation. Jakari, I'm going to come back to you and ask you when you think the verdict's coming and how you guys plan to try to keep safe. I know how you plan to keep safe. We'll stay right at the front of the action. We'll be right back, and your phone calls are coming up. Stay with us. I'm going to do 5 minutes of customary overdrive to finish up with some calls here. Jakari Jackson, I'm going right back to you. Other points that you have garnered in your last, I guess it's 4 or 5 days there in the St. Louis area. In your gut, when do you think? I want to hear you call it. I think they'll call it tomorrow evening during Obama's immigration announcement. That's just my wild guess. You'll be here, obviously, on the radio as it happens, or on the Nightly News Live covering it. But when do you think they'll announce the verdict, and how bad do you think it'll be?
Well, I think you have a good recollection right there. Tomorrow night would probably be the ideal time because, as we've been talking about, they missed the very cold period. It's about 50 degrees today. Yesterday was about 20, 17, something like that. So I think this would be the ideal time tomorrow night. Have the massive distraction away from all the other things that are going on in Washington and Obama and the amnesty and all of that. And as far as the damage, the locals I've talked to, as I was saying, they don't anticipate too much to happen in the city of Ferguson. If things do happen, they anticipate them to happen here in the city of Clayton. Now, what all that's going to be, I'm not sure. We've heard many reports of provocateurs, people coming in from out of town who have vested interest in, I guess, bringing down the system, more likely fighting with the police, which I don't think is a good idea because we see DHS in the area. We see the National Guard ready to be mobilized, and as well as the many other police, the St. Louis County Police, they're all ready to do whatever they have to do to stop the situation. But I will say, I think if it does turn ugly, there will be people in the police force taking liberties, taking advantage of the situation to brutalize the population, just to put it quite simply, because we saw them do it last time. They were targeting journalists, myself, Joe Biggs, Josh Owens, and the rest of the crew, also shooting pretty much indiscriminately into a blinding cloud of tear gas. And I had a chance to speak with the police chief of the St. Louis County Police, and he said, yeah, we'll try to do things a little differently next time. But it looks like they're back up to bat. At least it's my understanding they're going to be controlling the ground situation in Ferguson. So we'll see how they handle the situation if it does hit the fan.
All right, Jakari, we'll be watching you on the Nightly News every night at 7 and tomorrow live here on the air. And obviously, we'll have video feeds out of the verdict if there are any issues. We hope that the federal provocateurs and troublemakers that are being brought in aren't able to stir something up, but we'll be there trying to document it, and perhaps that'll dissuade the establishment from trying to stage something. But there are obviously some real thugs and criminals that might hear the call and might actually do something real, but we'll continue to watch the situation. Be safe, Jakari.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. They're now putting tweets out from different journalists like John Harwood saying another source familiar with Obama says that he will give a 30,000 feet in the air outline of the immigration order tomorrow. Yeah, just some vagary. That's what I'm predicting. We'll see what happens with that, obviously, tomorrow. Let's go ahead and, well, I'm going to go to break and then go to Danny and Carl and Motorhead and maybe Kelly. I'll try to go bam, 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 your calls. Don't know if I have time to get to everybody, but I'll try. We're going to go to break. Briefly, please remember that we have InfoWarsStore.com that has a lot of great gifts during the Christmas and holiday season, and your purchase helps support the broadcast. Plus, you get great Come and Take It shirts in English or Molon Labe in Latin with the Spartan helmet and the crossed rifles. A lot of the shirts that have been sold out are coming back in. We haven't gotten the green long sleeve one back in yet. I think we got that still in small. Everything else is sold out. We have the Molon Labe ball caps and the beanies. I don't know what you call those. Like Joe's wearing one right now, Joe Biggs. You know, the cold weather hats. We've got those, very affordable. We've got Molon Labe water bottles now in. And the Molon Labe belt buckles are sold out last time I checked. But that's InfoWarsStore.com. MadeIn1776.com takes you right to that Made in America area of the site. And then also, we, of course, have InfoWarsLife.com. Unbelievable, in my personal life, life-changing products like Oxy Powder, Survival Shield X2, Secret 12, special type of vitamin B12, DNA Force, Super Female Vitality, Lung Cleanse, all of it. OccuPower's back in, InfoWarsLife.com. And thank you all for your support. We couldn't do it without you. We'll be back in overdrive. For everybody else, God bless you all. Danny in Texas, thanks for holding. You're on the air, sir. Welcome.
Much glory from the big state, Alex. Real quick, a couple of things, maybe if I can get them out. When the SHTF, we got thousands of Union troops in the country, and nobody can win if they go door to door on a one-to-one basis. Can you speak to that without advocating organization or something to that effect?
Well, look, I'm no military tactician, but I've studied a lot of history. I don't want it to go to a confrontation with the military and the police. I'd rather wake them up. The info war is about 10 times more effective. The Pentagon even says that. And the most awake group is our military. Sure, they've been occupied, they've been captured, but once they're aware of that, once they wake up to that, it's over. But obviously, people, if martial law comes in and they're taking you to FEMA camps and the troops are following criminal orders, you got to defend yourself. You don't wait in your house for them to come get you. The best defense is an offense, and so that's what will happen. People aren't going to just sit there and wait to be taken to a FEMA camp. They're going to go on the offense. Everything I do is trying to stop that, because that's part of the globalist plan, to force us into a corner so that they can then basically have us all kill each other, then bring in the UN troops later.
I fully agree. I mean, we really don't want that to happen, and I probably should have said that to start out with. Second thing I wanted to say just briefly is, Neil Young's music is more relevant now than it ever has been. You think you could get him on?
I know folks that know Neil Young, and I like Neil Young. Who knows? Maybe try to get him on about his Starbucks situation, or, his view of things in the world. I know he's got mixed views on things, but I do like his music. Great points. God bless you. Thanks for calling, Danny. Carl in Nevada, you're on the air.
Yeah, how you doing, Alex? Long-time listener. Got to say I have a lot of respect for you. I do have I just don't understand something about today and the situation we're in, as far as, history, is bound to repeat itself. And history also, at the same time, shows violence is kind of the only thing that gets anything accomplished.
Well, those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. We're not doomed to repeat it if we learn from mistakes, and that's happened before. But we're affecting the future battle space as well right now. Okay? So what we're doing is getting our numbers up if they're going to go ahead and start a physical confrontation so that we have a chance to win. Listen, they're in trouble. The globalists are reviled. And we just need to keep pointing out they're the authors of almost every problem. They're the ones that are going to get the police and military in a bloody civil war. How about we just expose them and reverse course?
Because it doesn't seem to be heading that way. I mean,
no, things are not going well for them on many fronts, and I just don't know. Listen, you need to start exposing the globalists politically, and then they would stop doing what they're doing. They're not getting heat. David Rockefeller, Brzezinski, all these people, they need to be confronted peacefully everywhere they go. Because if you won't fight hard in the info war, you will never fight in a physical war. Motorhead in Tennessee, you got about 45 seconds. Go ahead.
Hey, Brother Alex. Do you know who Dr. Wynn Parker is?
No, I don't.
He's got a show on Sundays on RBN radio, and he's a big guy. He's old. He's made a lot of patents, and he's worked for the government in water. He's all about the water, down to the vibrational things about it. I don't understand about it. But he said there's something planned for February the 15th of 2015, and it's got to do with gold-laced chemtrails. I got one other thing to say, and it's about Christianity. I was raised a Christian, but it sure seems like when King James and them took this thing over and rewrote it, they just rewrote themselves a roadmap to do this to us. So, love you, man. Keep up the good work.
All right. Appreciate your call, buddy. Love you guys, too. I'm sorry I'm out of time for Adrian. Lord willing, we'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock, the Nightly News, and back tomorrow, 11 a.m.